Thank you, everyone, for being here. It is October 4th, 2022 of our regular city council meeting, calling to order. And just notice to the public that city council may vote to go into executive session for legal advice on any of the agendized items. Roll call, please.
Mayor Deasy.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sweet.
Here.
Councilmember Aslan.
Present.
Councilmember House.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Salas.
Present.
Councilmember Shimoni.
Here.
All right, Councilmember House, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. And Councilmember Aslan, our mission statement, please.
Mayor, the mission of the city of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you. And Councilmember McCarthy, our land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to the indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. That brings us down to agenda item number 4, our public participation. And I would like to start with our city manager, Greg Clifton.
Excuse the delay. Mayor, Council, good afternoon. I wanted to make an introduction. We've had opportunity to do this once or twice over the years, but sometimes we have students come in who have an interest in serving as future leaders. And we have a student with us today. Her name is Madison Ginsburg. She's here from ASU, Stacy. She is a grad student studying, getting her master's in public administration. She also has some legal involvement and serves as a legal assistant to the Arizona Supreme Court. Would like to introduce her at this time and maybe offer just a minute to have her tell a little bit about herself and her interest in local government. She's been meeting with Shannon, Stacy, myself. We had an interview last night, and then she's doing the rounds today in City Hall. We were very fortunate to have her make the trip, if that would be okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
You can speak right into that.
Hello. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to hear me speak. But yeah, as he said, I am a NU alumni. I got my undergraduate degree there in criminology and criminal justice. I now go to ASU. I'm getting my master's in public administration. I was previously a legal assistant for the Maricopa County Legal Defender's Office, and I've also worked in the Arizona Supreme Court Foster Care Review Board, and then now I'm a legal assistant at the Arizona Supreme Court. And yeah, I'm just thankful to be here and learn from you guys and hear you guys speak. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We thought this would be a very good agenda for somebody to sit and watch and listen. So thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and Council.
Absolutely. And we do have an online public participant, and then I can move to the other in person.
Mayor and Council, I have Heather. Heather, you may go ahead and address Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon. It looks like I don't have access to turn my camera on, but I'm happy to just share these comments with you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, and staff. I'm Heather Marcy with Northland Family Help Center, and I'm sorry I am unable to join you all in person today as you consider the proclamation naming October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As we get closer to elections, I wanted to just take a moment to thank you all publicly. This diocese has provided local victim services with ongoing support and commitment. You attend our coalition meetings. You ensured we had funding for our COVID needs. You take our calls and you meet with us to collaborate on issues. And as a nonprofit provider, I've felt very supported by this diocese, and I thank you all greatly.
Thank you, Heather. We do have another public participant, Andy Fernandez.
Yes, hello, Andy Fernandez, born and raised in the city of Flagstaff. Army Corps of Engineers, also ran for mayor here several years ago, and for congressman, I had over 8,000 votes. I've had helped Mayor Deasy, City Council Member Aslan, City Council Jimmy, and even Mrs. Sweet as an alternative, as a, their, what do you call it, fourth round scenario. Now the scenario is here is, now we're making changes, you can't even sit up here. There's nobody in these two seats, that's ridiculous. Again, what I stated last week, and the last 3 weeks out of the last 4, but you weren't here, so I had to do I had to come in and try to do a regular comment scenario. Now the scenario is, like I said, I facilitated the full staff reports at both libraries so people could come see them. Legally, like I say, you illegally facilitated scenarios the last six weeks. You didn't have anything posted up here. Now, with that said, again, I stipulated they shouldn't be having no 3 o'clock meetings. You want transparency? Have them like they used to be at 5:30. When I ran for office, I ran because I wanted to make changes to the city in a positive situation. I did not get paid. You guys get paid. Now, as far as Proposition 421, vote no. The city bought property on the 4th Street, which is now North Country Medical. The city bought this under $300,000, and this was like, 21 years ago. It sat idle for 12 years. They tried to sell it for $9 million. After they couldn't sell it, they decided to go ahead and put a big old sign saying they will donate it for non-for-profit, and that's how this scenario came up with North Country facilitating that property. Now, the affordable housing lie is a collusion with the grand cover-up of the lie that, well, I said read on my timeline, but it's regarding the scenario with these non-for-profits. Like I say, there was a few individuals that were arrested and cited for this, actually even Brett Favre, with some manipulating of the welfare funds in Mississippi. And so we have a scenario where these scenarios, how could you have affordable housing that it costs $102,000 more average than the normal housing in that area? And how could you have, in 7.5 years, $48,000 houses start selling for $380,000? That's not affordable housing. That's a corrupt scenario that's been manipulated by the government and by the real estate department and the county assessor's office. Yeah, also a scenario where the San Francisco Street one-way change that happened a few years back, 23 years ago to be exact. Mayor basically the rest said, yeah, you try it. I pushed it on them, and they didn't want it. Finally I said, well, give it a 1 year. A year came back. They came back to the city council with the owners with the tax forms and everything. Look, we're losing 48 to 62%. They promised to change it back. They never did. So you could be careful and leery of government and their promises. They're a bunch of lies.
Thank you, Andy. That brings us down to agenda item number 5, proclamations and recognitions. And we will start with a proclamation for Customer Service Representatives Week, and then to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Council members, if you'd like to join me up front, I'd appreciate it, as well as our customer service reps, if you'd like to come up. Council gets to hang out with the cool kids. Yeah. I'll go down more. Customer Service Representatives Week. It is. Customer Service Representatives Week is an international celebration of the importance of customer service and of the people who serve and support customers on a daily basis. Customer Service Representatives Weeks has been celebrated since 1987, and a high point in the week's long history came in 1992, when the U.S. Congress proclaimed Customer Service Representatives Week a nationally recognized event, which is celebrated annually during the first full week in October. Over the years, thousands of companies across the United States and around the world have celebrated Customer Service Representatives Week. They represent leading financial, healthcare, insurance, manufacturing, retailing, hospitality, communications, nonprofits, and educational organizations, as well as government agencies and others. A business built on customer service understands and anticipates the customer's needs. It designs goods and services to meet those needs and builds products that perform to customer expectations. The City of Flagstaff prides itself on excellent customer service, and this is only possible because of the dedication from our amazing staff. Right here. These ones. And others. Yes. And those online with babies. Now, therefore, I, Paul Deasy, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim October 3rd through 7th, 2022, as Customer Service Representatives Week. And I'd like to offer anyone who might want to say a few words. Celeste wants to say a few words. I can see it right here. Jessica, yeah, please jump on.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. And sorry I can't be there, but just want to congratulate everybody and thank you for this recognition.
Well, thank you. All right. Yeah. There you go. Yep. It's not, yeah, all right. Somebody's got to hold it. You keep it. High fives all around. We also have our Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and would like to invite anyone to come forward for the acceptance of it. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you. I don't know why we have that thing. And, Thank you, everyone, for being here. Domestic violence is a pattern of behavior of violence and intimidation for the purpose of gaining power and control over an intimate partner. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced sexual assault, physical assault, and/or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetime, and domestic violence within a family increases the risk of other violence in the home, including child abuse. Nearly 22,000 people called the domestic violence hotlines in Arizona to find help and options to stay safe between June 2020 and July 2021. The Flagstaff Police Department recorded 1,741 calls for service for domestic violence in 2021. There was an increase of 8.1% in domestic violence incidents during the COVID stay and home orders, according to a review conducted by the Council on Criminal Justice. Witnessing violence in the home during childhood is an adverse childhood experience, which without proper support can lead to a greater risk of negative lasting effect on health and well-being. Survivors of domestic violence exhibit amazing courage, strength, and determination in the aftermath of such violence and deserve Flagstaff support. The City of Flagstaff encourages all community members to work to support the efforts of organizations that provide education, outreach, and support to victims and survivors of domestic violence. Therefore, I, Paul Deasy, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. in Flagstaff, Arizona, and call upon the citizens of Flagstaff to join law enforcement, victim advocacy groups, and other local organizations to make our community a safe and supportive place for all of our families. To further acknowledge and support Domestic Violence Month, the city will raise the Domestic Violence Awareness flag in front of City Hall for the month of October 2022. And I'll welcome anyone who might want to. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, if you could, so that, gotta have the mic.
Hi, Kelly Wells with Sharon Manor. I just want to thank Mayor, City Council for proclaiming today the month DV awareness, domestic violence awareness. I also want to make sure that we thank our partners, Victim Witness, NACASA, Northland Family Help Center, and the work that we all do every day to support survivors of domestic violence. I also want to mention that October 20th is Wear Purple Day, so I encourage you to wear purple on the 20th to support domestic violence awareness. And I also encourage you to educate yourself and see ways that you can also help to support survivors of domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a comment.
Yes, please do.
Just want to extend my deepest gratitude to all of our partners, nonprofit, city, county, our law enforcement organizations. Domestic violence hits home, and I'm a warrior. But without the advocates, remember, this was in 2006 to 2008 until I finally got out of that situation. But it was through the advocates from Northland Help Center. At that time, too, I had a great advocate at my HR with Coconino County. And of course, the tipping point was when I had to call our Flagstaff Police Department. So in my individual capacity, thank you. And I offer my individual time to, when I can, to volunteer in all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. We are down to agenda item number 6, our council liaison reports. And we'll start on this side with Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Open Spaces Commission met in person at Picture Canyon in September, which was fantastic. For some of the past few meetings, we've been able to meet in person, and it's been a very wonderful opportunity to engage and interact with these beautiful community places and spaces firsthand and give some very powerful context to the conversations that are happening with that commission. Last month's Housing Commission meeting also welcomed a full commission with several new commissioners, so welcome to all of them. And it focused on an overview of Bond 2022 outreach efforts. So 2 great meetings last month and looking forward to this month. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Shimoni?
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. So Mountain Line received federal support for their environmental review related to their Downtown Connection Center, which is massive. This was a critical step in signing the IGA with the city and developing a timeline for phase 1 of demolition and construction. They're also starting to plan their community event for the groundbreaking and look forward to celebrating with all of us, the city of Flagstaff, and all the partner agencies. Staff at Mountain Line also continue to meet with NAH to develop a transit plan that is right-sized for each phase of the project. The plan does not include funding from NIH for the unbudgeted for this. It's unbudgeted and unfunded at the moment as a service. Secondly, the Water Services Director meet and greet was a great success. I really enjoyed tuning into that yesterday virtually. Big shout out to Shannon Jones, Aaron Young, Gary Miller, and James Sacker for their time and interest in serving as our water director. Our team has a very difficult decision ahead of them, but sounds like we have our candidate amongst this group, and just extra kudos to our local staff that stepped up for this role. Aaron and Gary, thank you both. Then this morning I was able to tune into a NLC event, National League of Cities event, titled Acknowledging History and Rebuilding Trust with Indigenous Peoples. Our own Rose Tohi invited all of us to attend that, and I was able to join the meeting this morning. Doreen Garlid is a council member down in Tempe, and she was part of the featured speakers, and it was a great event. Some of the key highlights I'd like to share with you members of the public and the council are that they talked about including flags within their city hall of tribal nations that identify with the land of which the city is within. Mascot change and representation, which made me think about NAU. And then employment was a big topic that I brought up a question about. And they said that going out and speaking at tribal events on tribal nations about employment opportunities at the city would help with employment applications. Internships go a long way, so shout out to you, city manager. But specifically through the lens of Indigenous populations is what they were talking about here, is trying to find Indigenous individuals who might want to intern with us to give them an inside look at what the city's operations are like. And then taking a close look at the expectations and requirements in our job postings. And so to make sure that it's inclusive and available to all these different populations that we might be looking to target and see more representation within our city staff team. And then last but not least on this topic, they spoke a lot about this new guidebook that was put out called A Roadmap to Repair, a guide to how cities can acknowledge and address the history of harm to Indigenous peoples, rebuild trust, and repair relationships. And city manager, if it's all right with you, I'll send you a link to this guide. And if you don't mind sharing that with the council, I'd so appreciate it. It's a wonderful guide, and I hope each of you take the time to take a look at that. A lot of good information in it that I'm looking to digest myself as well. Last but not least, the Transportation Commission meets, I want to say it's this Wednesday. Don't quote me on that, but they meet this week, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's a full agenda, and they're talking about their annual crash update information. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Some exciting news for Mountain Line. The first of 2 battery electric buses are expected in October. Mountain Line is very excited to bring the zero emission vehicles to our region in support of the city's climate action plan. And Monday is the BPAC meeting 4 to 6:30.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything tonight.
Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you. I have a couple things. So first, I wanted to give an update about the Sustainability Commission, which met on September 22nd. The commissioners heard the Grand Canyon Youth's Neighborhood Sustainability Grant final report and discussed the Sustainable Building Resolution, which will be coming in front of council for discussion soon, and staff's work on the carbon neutrality plan revisions. They elected a new chair and vice chair to begin service in January, and they picked a date to do a litter cleanup on Aspen Avenue. The next meeting of that commission is Thursday, October 27th. And I wanted to spend a minute catching up on something that I feel that I've neglected to properly crow about over the last little while. And that's the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Partnership that I'm the chair of. We had our annual field trip last Friday, and it was really exciting. It was a lot of fun. It was very informative, and it was very, very rewarding. The field trip started at the Pinyon Plain Mine, and the company executives led us onto the grounds there where we had a very honest and candid and authentic conversation back and forth about the need for uranium mining and the safety of that site, and some rebuttals from some very well-spoken representatives of ours with the Sierra Club who made the claim that the risk was just too great for our local tribal neighbors. That conversation gave me a lot of hope for our nation. I think if we could keep a conversation like that grounded, there's a lot of tension in the air, but everybody was respectful and professional. There were students with us from NAU who asked very respectful questions, and that's the kind of tenor that we need to have in all of our conversations, regardless of what angle we're coming at a particular topic. And it was really neat to witness that and to be a part of it. After that, we had the pleasure of being accompanied by Chief Jan Balsam herself of the Flagstaff, the Grand Canyon National Park, to go see the orphan mine, which was within the park boundary. Had a wonderful conversation on site there. And then another highlight was lunch with Carletta Toulouse, who is a tribal council member for the Havasupai tribe, who came up out of the canyon just to meet with us. And by the way, at the Pinyon Plain Mine, one of the executives flew out from Colorado to be with us on site that day. The trip was specifically to meet with our group, and just another really nice point of contact in terms of the neighborliness with which we can interact with each other. And I also think it speaks to the importance of the group that we have. Carletta talked to us about the connection between the environment, the animals, the trees, the bushes, and the water, and the uranium mining, and how they're very concerned about how that affects them. One thing I told her afterwards, Flagstaff City Council was set to meet with the Wallapai tribe. We had just met with the Wallapai tribe, and we were scheduled to go down to visit with the Supai. And that visit was canceled because COVID started. And of course the pandemic and the safety measures that were required there very much sort of took over the next couple of years. But I told her personally that looking forward to maybe rekindling that relationship and making that visit happen. So she's aware of that. City manager, I wanted to make you aware of it too, and maybe we can push that forward at this point. Rekindle those connections. I think it would be really outstanding. So something for us to be working on. And I wanted to talk about the CP WAC a little bit too, in a way that I've never really credentialed the group. And this is a group of area stakeholders from throughout the Coconino Plateau region, very concerned about water issues, about water conservation, about water quality, very diverse perspectives, a lot of professionals in the room. And so our conversations can get kind of heady pretty quickly. And I just wanted to lift up one thing in particular that the group is doing that Erin Young gave voice to yesterday during her meet and greet interview with the public, and that is the work that they're starting to do on rural groundwater. There are very few policies in place in the state of Arizona to manage rural groundwater, and the danger there is that these resources can be sucked out of the ground completely while municipalities stand by and watch helpless. And so led by our very own Ron Doba and Jocelyn Gibbons of the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Council, they have formed and organized a state-level response to this with a very robust stakeholder group from all over the state, including elected officials and policymakers all up and down Arizona, from Utah to Mexico, to address this issue. Very exciting stuff, and very proud of what they're doing. And then finally, I just wanted to reiterate what our membership looks like, because I've never really gone through the effort to provide this list, and I really want to be able to paint a nice picture of what this group does and how impressive it is. So I'm just going to read this from the Colorado Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Partnership website. Bear with me for a second. In fact, I'm going to take a drink. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's the best one we have, and I'm going to read from it because I will forget some of these otherwise. But when we meet every Friday, every last Friday of the month, we have representatives participating on a rolling basis for most of these groups at any one given time. And it includes the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, ADEQ, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, Game and Fish, Arizona State Land Department, the Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Reclamation, the City of Flagstaff, the City of Page, the City of Sedona, the City of Williams, Coconino County, the Coconino County Farm Bureau, the Friends of the Verde River, Grand Canyon National Park, Grand Canyon Trust, the Havasupai Tribe, the Hopi Tribe, the Wallapai Tribe, the Kachina Village Improvement District, the Little Colorado River Plateau RC&D, the National Park Service, Natural Resource Conservation District, Natural Resource Conservation Service, the Navajo Nation, NAU, the Nature Conservancy, Northern Arizona Lodging, Tourism, and Restaurant Association, the Sierra Club, Tucson, the Tucson Sanitary District, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, the Coconino National Forest, the Kaibab National Forest, and the USGS. And so I just wanted to really take the time out. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do that, to really share the breadth and the depth of the membership of this group. Very proud of what they're up to, very proud to be a part of it, and really just still floating from the energy that we got out of the field trip last week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. Councilmember Salas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed the Tourism Commission's meeting last week because we were busy with executive session. However, I would like to announce that on October 20th from 11:30 to 1:30 is the annual Stakeholders Partners luncheon for Discover Flagstaff, our tourism hospitality sector. And the guest speaker is Bill Stainton, a 29-time Emmy winner and Hall of Fame speaker. So, and you have to RSVP by October 13th. So, looking forward to that event. And then next week will be the Airport Commission on Thursday, October 13th at 1 o'clock. And then tomorrow is the advisory board meeting for the Economic Collaborative of Northern Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. And Councilmember McCarthy, something to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make a brief comment. I, too, had a chance to tour the Orpheum mine. We, of course, didn't go in it. We looked at it from the rim, and we were lucky enough to have one of the former managers of that mine with us. And someone asked a question. They said, well, of the people that worked in that mine, did they get any health problems? Like, did they get cancer? And he, with a very humble voice, says, yeah, that's the bad part of this mine.
Turned it off and rather than on. Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. My one update is regarding our Alliance meeting on Friday. This is the meeting with all the heads of the government institutions here locally, and the primary discussion was regarding our propositions, including the county jail tax, including the FUSD bond, as well as the two bonds we put forward as the city of Flagstaff. It's a very good discussion, learning about the ins and outs of the reasoning why these are necessary, and always a great discussion with our local government partners. Aside from that, I think we're ready to move on. We are
Mayor?
down to Councilmember Shmoney.
Yeah, so sorry, Mayor. I forgot to add one thing. I did put in the chat, but really quick, this Monday, this upcoming Monday, in a week from yesterday, October 10th, we have the Indigenous Peoples Day, and Rose Tohi, our coordinator of Indigenous initiatives with the commission, have been working very hard on this to make sure that this is a very good event. So big invitation to all of us and all of you to join us, 8:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. First half will be virtual, second half will be in person. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councilmember Shmoney. We're down to agenda item 7, our appointments for the Airport Commission. There are 4 appointments to be made and 5 applicants. And we will be starting with Councilmember Salas for recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my honor to nominate Ms. Gail Jackson for a term expiring October 2025.
Second. Beat me to the punch. Seconded by Councilmember Aslan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Next is Councilmember Aslan.
Well, I was very excited to see this application come in. I would like to nominate retired Air Force Colonel Thomas Waddle to be on the commission.
I second that.
I'll second.
Too late. I made it.
I didn't get that far. I'm sorry. I should have.
It's either to 2025 or 2024.
2025.
Till 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. The last 2 appointments will be for a term expiring October 2024. And we are down to Councilmember Shmoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Aslan, you beat me to it. I actually spoke with Thomas leading into this meeting, and he's very excited about the opportunity to serve the community in this way. So very excited that you appointed him. With that, I'd like to go ahead and appoint Carol Curtis, who is a current commissioner, to a seat expiring in October 2024.
I second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate Jesse Breckenridge to the Airport Commission for a term expiring October 2024.
I second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We are down to agenda item number 8 of our consent items. And unless otherwise noted by council members, I would like to motion to take these all together for approval as stated.
If that's a motion, I'll make the
I'm-
second.
That's the motion. Seconding that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We are down to agenda item 9, our routine items. This is 9A, consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2022-25. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code, Title 11, General Plans and Subdivision, Division 11-10.20. Additional procedures for comprehensive plan updates, new elements and major amendments to the general plan, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and establishing an effective date.
I'm here if you have any questions.
Excellent. Council, we have any questions at this time? Well, I'd happy to open the floor for a motion.
I move to read ordinance 2022-25 by title only for the final time.
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title 11, General Plans and Subdivision, Division 11-10.20, additional procedures for comprehensive plan updates, new elements and major amendments to the general plan, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and establishing an effective date.
I move to adopt 2022-25, ordinance 2022-25.
I second.
Motion by Councilmember McCarthy, seconded by Vice Mayor Sweet. All those in, or any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. We're down to agenda item 9B. This is the consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2022-26. An ordinance of the Flagstaff City Council authorizing the acquisition of real property for open space and the Flagstaff Urban Trail System purposes, providing for delegation of authority, severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date. Mr. Ince?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. Martin Ince with the Engineering Division. I did want to bring your attention to one change that was made to the ordinance since the first reading, and that change adds the phrase, "and the trails" to section 1 of the ordinance, so that entire sentence would read, "The City of Flagstaff is hereby authorized to acquire real property interests for open space and foots as described and prioritized in the chart attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and the trails generally located as shown on the map attached hereto as Exhibit 2. And this change would authorize staff to acquire property rights for any planned foots trails that are shown in the foots master plan, in addition to the parcels that are identified in the chart in Exhibit 1. The difference is that the properties in the chart in Exhibit 1 are properties that we actively initiate with the property owner. So we knock on a property owner's door and ask them about acquisition and negotiate for acquisition of the parcel. In other cases, we sometimes obtain easements for trails through private development. So for example, the gas station that's under construction at the Country Club interchange is going to give us a small foots easement across the corner of their parcel as part of that development. Those easements that are part of development wouldn't necessarily appear on the chart for Exhibit 1, but the change to the ordinance would allow us to acquire them, to accept those easements nonetheless, provided they're shown in the foots master plan. I hope that makes sense, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Thank you, Martin. Any questions about that? We do have one public participant. Yep. With that, we do have one public participant. Andy Fernandez, if you'd like to come up.
Okay, yes, open space, manipulated all these bond monies to acquire these facilities. Again, like I said, you know, I'm an Army Corps of Engineers, born and raised in the city of Flagstaff. And my key issues are water resources and growth. Now, what Mr. Aslan said, you know, I really thought that was beautiful. That was excellent. Except that, you know, the scenario is open space. We need to facilitate addressing these scenarios with our water resources, which is actually another item up on this agenda today. But we have a scenario where I came and I complained to the city of Flagstaff regarding SRP, Salt River Project. I went up, I'm an avid hunter and hiker, and I was out hunting and I seen these signs and I came up and I said to the city, hey, you know, there's these signs that say that the SRP has the water rights to our water here in the Northland. I said, this is ridiculous. So everything that all the water that goes into the Rio de Flag and goes down and then goes into Oak Creek and the Salt River, and it's basically filling up everybody's swimming pools down there and their golf courses, that's our water. And right now, like I say, we have almost a 26-year drought. This year is the first time I've seen it. 24 years ago, we actually had rain in September and October. Before that, we've had very limited water. So now we have a situation there with open space, like I stipulated last week, and McMillan Mesa should never have been built up. You know, I put that on the ballot with the 4th Street overpass, and the city came in and threw it down our throats, and I stated there was 3 elections. Everybody was upset about it. Finally, the city, on the 4th election, they separated. McMillan Mesa fell flat on its face. The city should have picked it up then and should have made that open space. Now, again, regarding the scenario of the water resources, we have some very limited scenarios. And you have a scenario where I have never seen but one time in 28 years of being a political activist, well, actually now, second time now, where a housing development has been disallowed. I mean, there's one where they say, oh, come on, we'll put it on hold, we're going to address these issues, modify it. But we can't be growing at 4.2 million people in 19 years. Like I said, from 1998 to 2007, actually the construction started in 1999, 7.5 years, housing that was supposed to be affordable here in Flagstaff, the first housing units off of 4th Street on 3rd, right behind the Chevron station, across the street from the Chevron, there's an empty lot. Right behind that, those are the first 5 affordable housing units. You keep on saying there's no territory, but there's a bunch of it. I've been mentioning it all the time. But the scenario is, you can't have a scenario where you call it affordable housing with these lies about not-for-profits that are corrupt, and have a price of $46,000 increase in 7.5 years to $385,000. That's corruption.
Thank you, Andy. All right, with that, Councilmember Salas.
Mr. Mayor, this ordinance will authorize acquisition of easement and parcels using $2 million in remaining funds from the 2004 Neighborhood Open Space and Foots Land Acquisition Bond approved by Flagstaff voters. This acquisition will support expansion of the Foots system, preservation of natural areas within the community, and connectivity with regional trails and open space. It is my honor to make a motion to read ordinance number 2022/26 by title only for the final time.
Well, I'm leading up to a second of that, but first of all, I wanted to just thank Martin Entz and the Transportation Commission and the Pedestrian Committee and the Bicycle Committee, and I've sat through a lot of meetings on this very subject with all of those committees and commissions.
Don't forget Robert Wallace.
All right. So I therefore would like to second Ms. Salas's motion.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilmember Salas, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? Councilmember House.
I'd just like to share that you both totally beat me to the punch on this one. I was so ready. But no, I just wanted to add to the thanks to Mr. Wallace, Mr. Ince, and the Open Spaces team that I've been able to work with over the past several months, and in discussions that we've had, to sharing how this ordinance and this plan moves forward several of the priorities of that commission. It's just very exciting to see the holistic approach that's being taken to several community priorities and objectives through the open space lens. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember House. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We are down to agenda item.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll need to read that.
Yep, City Clerk.
An ordinance of the Flagstaff City Council authorizing the acquisition of real property for open space in Flagstaff Urban Trail System purposes, providing for delegation of authority, severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance number 2022-26.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Salas, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We are down to agenda item 9C, consideration and approval of contract. Construction contract for conduit and fiber from City Hall to Butler Beaver, connecting the Visitor Center, Butler Pedestrian Crossing, and Northern Arizona University. And before anyone gets to the motion phase, I'm calling dibs, just so you know. But we'll turn it over to CJ for presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. CJ Perry, IT Director. This is an exciting project that has been in the works for quite some time. So up there, you'll see just a little bit of the route that we're doing. We're going from City Hall all the way down to Butler and Beaver. We're connecting NAU, the Visitor Center, and a pedestrian crossing that actually has been giving us some issues from connectivity, for connectivity. So we're really excited about this. This is also a great example of some of the investments that we have made over the past several years. There were several capital projects where we included a conduit that has helped reduce the cost of this project. So we're really happy and excited about that. Just a quick brief on the contract. We're doing a contract with Aspen Communications with an NAU cooperative contract. They have a local Flagstaff office, and they also built the city hall to the new courthouse fiber that we installed recently as well. So there's information about the contract, and that's pretty much all I had, unless you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, CJ. Any questions by council? Well, I'm very...
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, denied!
Just kidding.
I do have to make a comment on this. This, you know, coming into office in 2020, I was very surprised that we were not connected to fiber to NAU. And this stretch is going to help with our redundancy. It's going to help with our network, and is an exciting project. And I know it doesn't seem like much when we talk about internet dorky stuff, like we like to talk about, some of us at least. But this really is a huge benefit to our community and is going to connect us, NAU in the city, and create the network that we need to make sure we don't have downtime and create efficiencies for the government that save us a lot of money. So with that, I am going to make a motion, but we do have a public participant I want to get to. Andy Fernandez.
Yeah, okay, well, Andy Fernandez, now we have a situation here where I had a couple other items I wanted to discuss, but since I already mentioned the scenario with Aslan regarding that water scenario, which is also on another item 9, but since I already addressed that, I'm not worried about it. But this scenario is kind of running a different format. But I've come here to the city, and I've stated this on several occasions. Actually, on 16 occasions. Now you have these electrical conduit scenarios you can facilitating. You also have these don't walk crosswalks, but they're what I call them half-ass crosswalks, because you push it, you walk, and you have to push it again. That's appalling. I seen a guy get hit over here on Butler. And it's on your records, on your minutes. Same thing over there on 4th Street 3 times. I actually called the Flagstaff PD and filed 3 reports on them regarding that. I come in, I told you about the council. I went over there right by the school. You have children that are there that are, you're talking 12 years old, 13 years old. They have not facilitated a common sense scenario in the equilibrium. And yet none of you guys listen to any of these scenarios. That's what you need to address. And since you're talking about doing the electrical scenario there with conduit and communications, you could also do it with these stoplights and stop signs. Plus also, you know, the Drury sign way up there is way illegal, which, you know, they're talking about that scenario. And then you guys always let it fly, though, for 14 years, never made an issue. I mean, no, it was 11 and a half, almost 12 years. So anyways, again, I'm stipulating that we need to address crosswalks that go completely across. I'm not talking about on Butler. I mean, on Milton. Milton and Butler, it's you go up one block east. And there's that right there, little crosswalk that goes onto NAU campus. And that's where I seen that accident. Like I said, actually, I think I seen that one accident there. As I said, there's 3 occasions on 4th Street, and there's a couple over there on Cedar. So with that said, you know, I was going to address another item, but since this came along, I said, I'm going to address this at this time. Have a good day.
Thank you, Andy. All right, with that, I will just say thank you for all your work on this, CJ. I know you ran into lots of obstacles and hurdles through the process, and I'm glad to see that this is coming before council. So with that, I will make a motion, Councilmember Shimoni, to approve the cooperative purchase contract with Aspen Communications in the amount of $593,593.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Shimoni. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimously. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We're down to agenda item 9D. This is the consideration and approval of PZ-15-00115-23, Adora, Phase 2 at Timber Sky preliminary plat. Capstone Homes requests preliminary plat approval for Adora, Phase 2 at Timber Sky, located at 2760 South Vega Street, a 39-lot single-family subdivision on 7.15 acres in the medium-density residential zone.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Ben Mejia. I'm a planner for the City of Flagstaff. Today we have a request for preliminary plat approval from Capstone Homes for Adora Phase 2 at Timber Sky. This is located at 2760 South Vega Street. The proposal is for a single-family subdivision, which will result in 39 single-family home lots on 7.15 acres in the medium-density residential zone. This site is within the resource protection overlay. Staff has approved the proposal on July 7th, and this was reviewed and recommended for approval by Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting on August 24th. The site is located just south of Block 3A, which is Adora Phase 1. And to the east of the site, you'll find Sky Cottages. To the south, Block 4 across from McAllister Ranch Road, or over it. And just some additional context about Timber Sky development. The annexation and zoning map amendment was approved in 2016 with a maximum density proposed of 1,300 residential units. So as you can see, the 39 lots are a continuation of what was initiated in Phase 1. We see, which is consistent with the process that exists in Timber Sky. Corners are captured in tracts, which creates some uniformity of setbacks across these lots. We also see additional access being proposed to McAllister Ranch Road. Now, this is in the resource protection overlay. So to account for resource protection, we see some preserved trees in Tract D particularly, but also the use of building envelopes to preserve some additional trees that are existing on lot. We also see some new trees proposed along the East Street. It is important to recognize that Timber Sky, in order to maintain the, I'm sorry, let me refresh. The resource protection is averaged across the Timber Sky development area. And in order to keep track of that, the applicant does need to refresh and update those numbers so that we can keep tabs on the active resource protection. This does allow for deficits to be made up from one site to another, and we see that in this case in particular, where the required 47.5 is not being met. I believe they're proposing 44.1, and that deficit will need to be made up elsewhere in the development area. The proposal meets medium density residential standards and applies T4N2 standards for building placement and form. We see the density, it does meet the MR range for density, which is a minimum of 2 units per acre and a maximum of 14 units per acre, with their proposal being around 5 to 7 units per acre. Lot sizes range from 4,500 square feet to 8,000 square feet, with typical lot dimensions approximately 50 feet wide with 90 feet in depth. And setbacks are applying T4N2 standards with a 5-foot front setback and 3-foot side and rear. Cultural resource clearance was completed with the original approval in 2016. Open space and amenity area requirements are provided within the larger Timber Sky development. We see community center and some open space tracts applied to meet those requirements. We also see sidewalks being provided throughout this subdivision that link into other subdivisions. Engineering standards are met for this proposal, with confirmation and compliance going to be approved in civil engineering plans review, which is the next step after this. And there is no TIA requirement for this subdivision, but there was a TIA with the original rezone in 2016. Water and wastewater, this proposal does provide 8-inch lines for water and sewer to all lots. And there is regional stormwater detention provided for the Timber Sky development area, but also on-lot LIDs. This proposal meets preliminary plat procedures and application requirements, as well as subdivision improvements, or minimum subdivision improvements, apologize. And we see it meeting subdivision standards and regulations, which include lot, street, easement, and block design. And to conclude, staff finds that the preliminary plat meets the requirements of the zoning and subdivision codes, as well as engineering standards. Staff recommends the City Council approve the preliminary plat in accordance with the findings presented in this report and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation. Thank you. And the applicant is here. They don't have a presentation, but they are able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ben. City Council, any questions or comments? Otherwise, happy to entertain a motion. Councilmember Salas.
I have a question to the applicant.
Hello, John Sutherland, 3605 South Flagstaff Ranch Road.
Thank you for being here. So what's your timeline on breaking ground?
As soon as possible. It's kind of our standard answer for everything, so we know there's a process remaining to get to final plat and get the civil plans approved. We've drafted the civil improvement plans, so we don't know what the market holds, but it's currently okay, let's say. So we would like to bring these lots and homes to market as soon as we can.
Or you were looking like in the next month, or because, you know, we're getting to winter season?
Yeah, true. I mean, weather, everything else has an effect on it. The process takes a while too, going back and forth on comments and corrections and all that. So I can't give you an exact date, but the sooner we can get to that point, the better. If we could get started this winter, I would anticipate it might only be something like tree removal, maybe an at-risk grading type thing. But for sure, in the spring, you might see some more heavy improvement installation.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy.
We have a housing shortage in this city. Thank you for being part of the solution.
You're welcome. We try.
Thank you. Happy to entertain a motion. Councilmember Salas.
I move to approve the preliminary plat in accordance with the findings presented in this report and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation 6-0.
A second.
Seconded by Councilmember House. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. We are now down to agenda item 10A. This is our public hearing item. Consideration and adoption of resolution number 2022-48. A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council amending the Flagstaff Regional Plan 2030 by amending Chapter 10 and glossary to address active transportation and establishing an effective date. I'm opening the public hearing at this time, and I'll defer to Ms. Decter.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Sarah Decter. I'm the Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Manager for the City of Flagstaff. And today I'm here with an application from the city's engineering division to do a minor plan amendment to the Flagstaff Regional Plan 2030 for active transportation. The proposed changes in your packet show text changes for the narrative of Chapter 10, Chapter X, transportation in the Flagstaff Regional Plan for pages 8 through 15, as well as the replacement of map 26, which is the Flagstaff Urban Trail System map, with 5 maps that break in more detail the kind of active transportation improvements that the city hopes to accomplish in the future. There is also additional definitions being added to the glossary associated with these changes. So I won't read everything in the amendment. Greg took a breath. But what you can see primarily is that the text in blue is the new language, and that there's not a lot of deletions. So for example, in quality design, there's 4 sections being added, one on context-sensitive solutions, complete streets, the 6 E's of walking and biking, and planning for long-term maintenance. There are no changes being proposed to goals and policies because all of those terms and concepts are incorporated already into the goal and 3 policies in this section. It's simply that the descriptive text was very vague. It was really only a short paragraph. And there was often times where interpreting these goals and policies would have benefited from additional material and information in the plan itself. And so this information originally appeared in a draft active transportation master plan, and we felt it was most appropriate to move that language into the plan because it could serve in interpreting goals and policies effectively. In addition, so pedestrian infrastructure is another page set that's being updated. You can see about 2 sentences were deleted, and then a lot of material has been added on sidewalks, crossing and intersections, universal design, and then a new section on electric and micro-mobility devices. Bicycle infrastructure has similar treatment, including a call-out box that now includes the Flagstaff Trails Initiative, which is a regional trails strategy that was a result of the regional plan's work to build regional trail systems that's evolved now into a standalone nonprofit and a regional trails plan. The new maps that you will see as we go through these slides are existing and missing sidewalks. So in that case, it shows these are only existing and missing sidewalks on major streets, not on local streets. Planned bikeways by class, enhanced and grade separated crossings, existing and planned foots, which is the replacement for the map we're removing, and then forest access and trailheads. So this is the current map. This is what we have for active transportation infrastructure in the plan currently. And I'll walk through a little bit of what's replacing it. So this is our missing streets in red, to show where sidewalks and major streets are missing, and so these are areas for future improvements. There's the planned bikeways by class. Bikeways, though mentioned in the regional plan as a type of infrastructure, were not necessarily fleshed out, and this is a much more fleshed out system for the community to be looking at. Then there is an identification of enhanced and grade separated crossings. This is the replacement map 2060 for the urban trail system map we currently have. And then there is a map for forest access and trailheads. Are there any questions about this so far?
Can I just make a note of something that I'm very excited to see? Came on here earlier in the week looking to see if that overpass that I've been talking about over I-40 is incorporated into this infrastructure, and it's there. Really excited to see that. Thank you.
Great. So why was this community plan deemed necessary? The community has been having discussions on active transportation through the process that Martin Ince, our multimodal planner, has been leading since the 2014 adoption. And really, that conversation has evolved over the last few years, but the goals and policies in the plan have really have held up to the test of time, and they've held up well. However, what has been going on around them and the context in which they're being applied has been changing rapidly. We did not have e-bikes or e-scooters or many of the other kinds of micro-mobility devices and options in 2014 that exist today. And so fleshing this out is beneficial and a good preparation for the adoption of an active transportation master plan, even though it is a separate decision. So this process for a minor regional plan amendment went through all the necessary steps, including interdivision staff review, where the application was deemed complete. It was transmitted to other government agencies, utility companies, and the public. There's a public review session that was held with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committees and the Transportation Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing on it, and now this is the final step of hearing with City Council to adopt the resolution. So we want to be clear that the Active Transportation Master Plan and the amendment to the regional plan are not the same process, though they are both related in terms of subject matter. The minor plan amendment is following the requirements of Title 11 of the City Code, and the Active Transportation Plan is following a process to be adopted just as a general city policy and master plan. It is not being adopted or proposed any longer as a specific plan. This will give us the opportunity to amend the Active Transportation Master Plan more nimbly, and all while at the same time having a more fleshed out version of the regional plan. So I believe the next regular meeting, October 14th, the Active Transportation Master Plan will be in front of you for consideration. So for a minor plan amendment, we need to make these findings of conformance. So this plan amendment does conform with the current regional plan as it adds material on accessibility, walking, biking, complete street goals, and is additionally in support of our desire to see mode shift in support of carbon neutrality, which is an amendment the council made as a major amendment last year. In addition, there are community benefits of considering more thoroughly emerging technology, public health benefits from increased activity, and the opportunity to decrease the number of bicycle and pedestrian accidents. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, in their review of this document, found that there were a few actual errors in some of the maps, and so we have corrected those, but their recommendation was for council to approve the Active Transportation Minor Regional Plan Amendment with those map corrections, which are the ones attached in Exhibit A in your resolution. Since that time, the Arizona State Land Department has provided some public comment in writing, which was attached this morning, I believe, to your packet. They have concerns about especially map 26D showing additional trails across section 20. And part of that is because they feel that when trails are shown on state lands, they have more trespass issues. That section is closed to camping for fire reduction risk. And so they want to see what we are proposing in this plan amendment and the Active Transportation Master Plan more aligned with their strategy in terms of how they would like to manage Section 20 until it may in the future be auctioned. That section, of course, is future suburban in our current regional plan, so it is not designated open space. So staff has met with the Arizona State Land Department, and Karen Dada may be in your public comment queue. Staff recommends that if council would like to address Arizona State Lands Department's comment, that they could recommend approval of this minor regional plan amendment with a few minor conditions. The first being to add state land boundaries to all maps and to add a recommended disclaimer that they've provided in their email. State Lands would also like to maintain the trails shown on the current map 26 in section 20 instead of the ones that are currently displayed on 26D and 26E. And if council adopted these conditions, we could update these maps in this manner before the effective date of November 3rd. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Sarah, Councilmember McCarthy.
Do you have thoughts on the State Land Department's recommendations, the staff, you and other staff members?
I think that State Land has a very different mission than other landowners that are generally talked about it as open space. And so they're very sensitive to how their lands are displayed on maps like this for good reason. However, there's a lot of work that went into considering alternative trails as well. And so we support making sure that State Land's comments are presented accurately and that you have an opportunity to address them. Is that a non-answer to your question?
That was a pretty good non-answer, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Martin Entz, do you have any comments? If not, that's fine, but if you do, all the better.
I feel like I probably always have comments. Your Honor, Councilmember McCarthy, So in looking at section 20 in particular, there's a couple of points that we want to kind of make sure we have trail connectivity to. There's a couple of corridors that we want to preserve for trails. And there's a couple of goals that we want to accomplish. And the points of connectivity are already established. There are places where the city either has right-of-way or we have planned to acquire right-of-way to make access. And it's generally to serve the existing neighborhoods that are to the north and west of Section 20. Currently, as Sarah mentioned, they kind of use Section 20 as open space, but they also use it as kind of a passage to get to the national forest to the south. So when Section 20 develops, we want to make sure that existing residents in existing neighborhoods, that access is maintained, and they can get through the new neighborhood to the Forest Service to the south. Along the the east boundary, the Flagstaff Loop Trail is aligned, and we want to make sure that that is protected and maintained and enhanced when that section is developed. It's unlikely that there would be a scenario where we would deal with the state land department regarding what actual trails might be built as part of development. It's more likely that we'll deal with the property owner that purchases Section 20 and proposes development for it. So we have some flexibility when it comes to that time in terms of how the trails align. But again, we have some kind of certain points and corridors that we want to make sure that we hit to protect existing trail access and access to the forest for existing and future residents.
So it sounds like there's a lot of reasons to leave the plan just the way it is. On the other hand, I'm hesitant to just dismiss what the state land department says about what they want done regarding their land. It is their land at this point in time, which means now. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. Have we provided these, the staff recommendations to address their concerns to them already?
Yes, Mayor DC, we have provided those to them, and they concurred that these conditions would address their concerns. And then they looked forward also to working with us on the regional plan update to kind of address the framework we're using to manage trails more broadly so that it's better aligned with their management goals.
Excellent. Well, that is sufficient for me. With that, council, any other comments or questions? Councilman McCarthy.
So what is the disclaimer? I guess that came out today, and I didn't notice it on my email today.
It's basically along the lines of this first paragraph of a disclaimer that states that state land, you need a recreational permit in order to actually be recreating on state land, and just because we show trails on state land doesn't mean that that's legitimate recreation access. So they just wanted a disclaimer like that. It's in the email that's in the packet, and it's pretty straightforward overall, and then it redirects people to this permit site.
All right, thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
All right.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Schmunny.
Thank you. Sarah, thank you for the presentation, and Martin and team for your work on this. This is exciting. Sarah, sorry I didn't email you or include you in the email I sent out to the team leading into today's meeting with my comments. Not sure if that email reached you or not, but or Martin, not sure if you got the chance to look that over, but I had some things I'd like for us to consider adding perhaps to these changes, these amendments. One is within the intersection size, or in the intersection section of the document. I think it was page 12. It'd be great if we could speak of like a max size that is still comfortable for pedestrians to cross. I know other towns have adopted 5 lanes as a max intersection size. I'd also love for there to be a sentence or two about protected intersections and single lane roundabouts versus larger roundabouts when it comes to pedestrian well-being. On page 32, there's talk of congestion a bit, and it'd be great to dive into that a little bit more with topics like induced demand, right sizing, and perhaps even adding the chart that shows speed versus pedestrian impact at the different speeds in terms of the severity of their impact from the car at the different speeds. I didn't see anything about equity given that 30% of our community does not have access to a vehicle, I thought that could be relevant here. And then youth. It'd be great to have a small section on youth talking about both their safety and ability to get around, plus a special focus on school transportation, I think would be worthwhile. And then lastly, Sarah, just a little nitpicky thing. I heard you call crashes accidents. And I believe the PC term, Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, is crashes. They call those crashes, not accidents. But Sarah, I'd be happy to send you my little list. But do you have any thoughts about those? Are those things you think you might be able to integrate into this?
I think I'd have to ask Sterling a question about that. So I think some of the sections you related to in your comments were not part of the changes that Planning and Zoning Commission looked at to make their recommendations. Would we need to go back to Planning and Zoning Commission to
Yeah, that's
consider
correct. It
those?
would have to be vetted by planning and zoning first.
Sorry, so I think.
Okay, so Sarah,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, no, you go ahead.
Oh, so I think there's that list there's a possibility of addressing them, but we would have to take the amendment back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and come back at a later date with a revised minor amendment.
If I could.
I see.
Mayor and council,
Attorney.
sometimes there are, it's appropriate to approve an ordinance contingent upon something happening. This is not one of those cases. If planning and zoning needs to make a decision on a recommendation of that before council passes an ordinance, this isn't one you could simply approve contingent upon. It would have to go on hold essentially and go back to planning and zoning.
And then that's a statement I
I
think
guess.
about the full list, correct?
Correct.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Okay, so Sarah, there's.
Oh,
Oh,
Councilmember
sorry.
McCarthy would like to chime in here, and then we can go back to you, Councilmember Shmoney.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I'm getting the feeling that it would be best to postpone this. I don't know if that's the legal term, but in other words, put it off a little while to have staff more thoroughly consider the state land department comments, and then also to consider Mr. Shimoni's comments, be that through planning and zoning or whatever. I'm not making a formal motion at this point, but I can after we have some discussion on it.
And I can speak to that if you'd like, Mayor.
Yes, please.
With respect to postponing, this is a public hearing. Obviously, you'd have to postpone to a date certain because it has been published to occur now. So you would have to pick a certain date in the future so that the public would be able to come and comment at that point when the public hearing is continued too. That said, with respect to Councilmember Shimoni's comments, I agree that that would be probably the best approach. However, with respect to state lands, you could still approve today. Eventually that state land we know will likely be auctioned off, and when it becomes private property, you could go ahead and condemn. We couldn't condemn right now with it being state land, but that isn't something that should hold you up today.
So we could approve, but without making the changes that Mr. Shimoni suggested. And we could go either way on the state land thing. Okay.
That's correct. If you are still uncomfortable even with state lands comments, yes, you can still postpone. I'm just saying, yes, you could approve today, even with state lands comments. Just know that you're not going to have those foots easements. The permits will be required. And until it does become private property, you're not going to be able to condemn.
Thank you, Ms. Dector.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the difference between the comments to address, the suggestions to address state lands concerns and the comments that Councilmember Shimoni is making is we're really just adding factual information about the state lands status, and then also reverting back to what is currently in the plan. So none of that is outside the scope of what planning and zoning considered. But what Councilmember Shimoni is suggesting is new text to that could be added that we have not written or vetted or shown to anyone. And that's really where there's a difference between the state land conditions and conditions. You can't just write conditions for text we haven't been able to present anywhere yet. So that's the struggle a little bit in terms of why, if we wanted to address Councilmember Shimoni's comments, we might need to go back through planning and zoning and come back to council at a later date.
Thank you. Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you, Mayor. So a comment and a question. I see that we've cracked open the proverbial can of worms here, and I have some concerns about that. Before I go any further, though, I just wanted to double check with you. What are the consequences of a delay in the timeline on this? If you could touch upon that a little bit, if there are any.
I think that the mayor, vice mayor, and Councilmember Aslan, I think that the only consequence is that you might be considering the active transportation master plan first. And then I don't know what the timing would be to get it back to you. It might be that we're bringing back the minor plan amendment to a new council.
Mayor and council, if I could, Councilmember Aslan, specifically with respect to your comment of perhaps having cracked open a can of worms, with respect to state land's comments and the state land concerns, I don't believe that has cracked open a can of worms. I think that has a very easy solution to it. Again, you could postpone if you're not comfortable with it, but with those comments, it could still move forward. The distinction that I appreciate Sarah making between that and Councilmember Shimoni's comments, which did not go through the planning and zoning process, that is something that would take more time and require that postponing, as Sarah said.
So I'll just share my initial thoughts on this. Obviously, I want to hear from other folks and really find the best path forward here. I do think that some of Councilmember Shimoni's comments warrant further discussion. I also really appreciate the trust and faith that our city staff have put into this by bringing it forward at all. These changes are neat, they're vetted, they're not value-based, they're factual-based, and I see a lot of it seems the much safer route to me that we proceed today with the amendments as stated. There's a lot of amendments in here. Our team has put a great deal of thought into this already. Lots of additions with additional clarity. And I sense that some of the things, Councilmember Shimoni, while I may very much agree with what you're trying to do, they're more value-laden. And we get into a conversation about priorities and value-laden definitions. I think we're going to tie ourselves up in knots and possibly do more harm in the long run that these quick fixes are offering us. And so my personal position, and this is just kind of a gut check, but I do think that we should rely on the recommendation that staff has provided with their thoughtfulness backed up by the vetting that has already occurred. And if there are other additional value-laden wording changes that need to go into this, that could be a separate process. And Councilmember Shimoni, I know you're leaving soon, so either way, you might not be here to see these possible changes through. I would commit to you to work, on the best of my ability to represent a lot of those ideas moving forward. I just think that that's probably the safest, neatest path for us to go down.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. Councilmember Salas, then we'll go back to Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councilmember Aslan's perspective, and Councilmember Shimoni, I do value your perspective as well. But to move forward with the decision tonight, will it be helpful if we read the the resolution and iterate the staff recommendation to address the ASLD comment. I think there's three bullet points that staff has. Is that three? I'm not seeing the entire screen on mine. Yeah, 3 bullet points to move forward and hopefully adopt this resolution tonight, because I don't want to delay this exercise.
Councilmember Salas, Mayor and Council, from what I understand, that's a procedural question, and you're spot on. Those 3 things, the staff has worked very hard to come up with a solution here, and to move forward tonight with that would be appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
Thank you. Councilmember Shimoni?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you.
City Attorney, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Sterling.
Sorry, I didn't know there was another comment from Councilmember Shimoni. Just a call for public comments after we're done here, of course, as well.
Yep. Councilmember Shimoni?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a quick follow-up. I appreciate the comments shared, Councilmember Aslan and Councilmember Salas. You know, I know that often we look at the regional plan for direction for staff, and I've been told many times that it's confusing and it isn't clear enough. So I guess I was hoping that maybe we could add a little bit more clarity, because I did feel like some pieces were really missing. I know that these adjustments don't occur too often. And yeah, I know, I understand that it'd probably be pushing it past my council term, but I would totally put faith in the next council to see it through. I guess my question, Councilor Aslan, is are there any specific topics that you find to be problematic that you would want to remove, perhaps, that would maybe make you feel more comfortable with seeing this go back to the commissions? Just because, Mayor and Council, it doesn't seem like there's much of a negative consequence to doing so that I'm hearing from staff. And I just see this as such an opportunity to really get some detail in our regional plan. But like has been said, I appreciate the work that's been done to get to this point. I just think that there's a lot of really important things missing. But if we want to move forward tonight, then it is what it is. But that would be my ask. If we were to consider putting it back, if there are specific things that are, not, topics that we want them to have discussed, then I'm fine with that too. Thank you.
Just to chime in here. So this is an amendment to our existing regional plan, and we're in the development of a new regional plan as it is. I would say that we can move forward as is with this. And Councilmember Shimoni, you bring up a lot of great points, a lot of important values that are important to include. But going back and forth, doing amendments to the current regional plan when we're in development of a new one, why don't we save that information and those very important points you're making for the new regional plan while we move forward with the amendments as proposed today? It would be my suggestion. Councilman McCarthy, and then we can touch base with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to staff, kind of a follow-up to my last question. Do you feel comfortable with these 3 bullet points?
Councilmember McCarthy, regarding the State Land Department? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, then I do too.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I wanted to address Councilmember Shimoni's question, and I'm already kind of forgetting what it is, but let me just clarify for you, Adam. I didn't hear anything that you said that sent up red flags for me. My concern is more procedural. If we open this up to your comments, it's going to end up opening the whole thing up to everybody's potential comments and modifications. And I just think it's really important for us to keep this process neat and sweet right now. One reason being that this is a tool that staff can use in the future for further tweaks that they find necessary. And the other thing I just want to follow up on is that the great deal of faith I put in our city staff. They are reflecting the values that we collectively bring to the table when they come up with these new word choices. And there are potential sticky points where that could get, there could be tension. And I really want to honor the work they've put into this and the narrow, the needle that they've woven through this fabric to make sure that they're honoring what they see as our collective direction and wisdom just based on knowing how we operate over the past 2 years and keeping things at that level right now. I agree with the mayor that a lot of the suggestions you're bringing to the table merit further discussion, but there may be tension there, and there may be conflicting proposals that come forward, and I think it's important we avoid that at this time, and we work with what we have, which is a really good document brought to us in strong good faith that it's representing our collective will to the best of the ability to do anything like that while herding 7 tigers. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you to staff for your hard work on this. And Councilmember Shimoni, I do want to honor what you have put forth. I agree with a lot of the recommendations. However, I think Mayor brought up a great point, and Councilmember Aslan, thank you for also making that point. And I kind of lean that way. I respect staff and the work they've put into this, and this isn't the end all be all, but it's a great step in the direction and a great tool that they can use. So I'm kind of leaning towards that for right now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Salas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echoed everyone's voices here, but let me just explain why I do not wish to delay this process, because this is the perfect moment to put forth some amendments to our current regional plan, and then we are scheduled to adopt the active transportation master plan in a couple of weeks. So these 2 important documents are our leverage in seeking further state and federal grants in support of active transportation master plan and multimodal transportation planning. So case in point, we have safety streets and safety roads. We have protect grants coming up, and also the neighborhood equity and access grants coming up with the Inflation Reduction Act. So between access to that grant and the bipartisan infrastructure law, it is imperative for council to adopt this tonight so we can bring more state and federal dollars to all of our active transportation initiatives. Thank you.
All right, I think we're seeing some consensus, but let's try to wrap this up a bit. Councilmember House.
Sure, I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank Ms. Decter and staff for answering some of my earlier questions on some of the content on just the electric transport options. And I want to thank you, Councilmember Salas, for bringing up that point about grant options. So I think I'm in consensus with the rest of council at this point, but just wanted to note that thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember House. Councilmember Aslan.
I very much appreciate the additional indulgence as I wrap this up with some concluding thoughts. Councilmember Shimoni, you should be, as you're finishing up your term, you should be very proud of the influence you've had on these conversations. And I hope you view this proposed amendment very much as a monument to your influence and to your legacy. A lot of this wouldn't be happening without your persistence and your dedicated detail, your eye to detail on all these things. So while you may not see everything you want to see in here, when I read this document, what I saw was your legacy. And I just hope you do appreciate that. And again, it's another testament to our city staff who works very hard to make all 7 of us as happy as possible, and who really are at these tasks at our behest and because of our direction. And while there's additional amendments that we could make and additional fights we could fight, I see this as an incredible victory of yours, and just a real testament and a monument to the legacy that you're leaving the city of Flagstaff.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. With that, I'm closing the public hearing, and I move.
Actually, Mayor, we need
Yes.
to call for public comment, and I do believe
We do.
Councilmember Shimoni asked for one more comment, too.
Oh, he did put that last. Okay, Councilmember Shimoni, and then do we have any public participants for this item? I'm not seeing any at this time.
No, Mayor.
Okay, then Councilmember Shimoni.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Sterling. Thank you, Councilmember Aslan and Mayor and Council and staff. I do feel like this is a big deal, and I do see the city moving in the direction that I've been diligently pushing and pulling and begging and pleading. So I'm very grateful, and I feel really good about all of this. And yes, are we exactly where I want us to be? Not exactly, but are we heading in that direction? 100%. So thank you for those thoughtful comments, Councilmember Aslan. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for all of your support on all these different transportation-related topics. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. And without public participation, I'm closing this public hearing and move to read resolution number 2022-48 by title only.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember McCarthy.
Mayor, just to clarify, is that with the 3 bullet points that are on the screen right now, I believe? It should be a motion to approve as amended.
Motion to approve as amended on resolution number 2022-48.
Okay, with that clarification, I second.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. With that, it is 4:40.
Mayor.
Yes.
I need to read and then
Yes,
adopt.
do it up.
I need my few minutes of fame here. A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council amending the Flagstaff Regional Plan 2030 by amending Chapter X and glossary to address active transportation and establishing an effective date as amended.
I move to adopt resolution number 2022-48 as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Now we're going to be taking a quick break. It is 4:46. Let's be back here at 5 o'clock to go to our regular agenda. Good to go.
We are, Mayor.
All right, we are down to agenda item 11A. This is our regular agenda. Consideration and adoption of resolution number 2022-47, a resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Williams, City of Page, Grand Canyon National Park, Glen Canyon National Park Service, and the City of Flagstaff for the Arizona 911 Grant Program.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Katie Brandis. I'm the Communications Manager for the Police Department. I'm here today to ask you to approve the grant agreement and the IGAs for the State of Arizona 911 Office in the amount of $544,095. The grant covers the costs of the 911 telephone systems for the 5 public safety answering points, also known as PSAPs, in Coconino County, which include Flagstaff, Williams, Page, Grand Canyon National Park, and Glen Canyon National Park. The funds for the grant come from revenues from the Emergency Telecommunications Service Revolving Fund. The State 911 Office designates the largest city in the county to act as the system administrator of that county. The City of Flagstaff has acted as the system administrator for Coconino County since the State 911 Office was created. The system administrator is responsible for submitting annual statistical reports and 911 bills to the state on behalf of all the agencies in their county. As system administrator, we are entitled to 1.6% of our 911 budget for administrative fees that are included in the grant award. The state of Arizona has always paid our 911 operating bills for all the PSAPs in the state. In 2018, the State 911 Office started an annual grant program to distribute the funds to each of the PSAPs. I applied for the funds in February, and the grant was approved for FY23, which started in July. The City of Flagstaff pays the 911 bills, and then the state reimburses within 3 to 5 days of submittal. One of the requirements of the grant is to have agreements in place with Williams, Page, Grand Canyon National Park, and Glen Canyon National Park to pay the 911 operating bills on their behalf. Included in those IGAs is a caveat that states if the 911 office is unable to pay the 911 bills, each agency will be responsible for their own operating costs. So that's all I have. So if you have any questions, I'll take them.
Excellent. Any questions, Council? Councilmember Aslan.
I do, and of course I approve, I'll support the approval of this grant. I just wanted, I'm wondering if I could take the opportunity to get a quick update, to lay the land with our dispatch. How's that trending? Are we making progress? Do you guys feel that you're getting the resources you need, the staffing that you need, the technology that you need? An open invitation to go ahead and let us know where things are at and what you still need.
Sure. We recently did a CAD upgrade, so that was really helpful because our old system was about 20 years old and it kept freezing up and basically kicking the dispatchers out of the system, which is not very good in the middle of an emergency call. So we did get that upgrade. We moved under the City of Flagstaff IT. They have been fabulous in getting every resource that we need, getting things working. Our staffing, I have about 6 vacancies right now. 3 of those are supervisors. Tomorrow and Thursday, I'm doing supervisor testing. So 3 of those people will be promoted, hopefully, and then I'll continue to fill their vacancies. I have been getting quite a few applications, and I have about 7 people in backgrounds currently. So we're making some headway.
Good. That's good to hear. I know there's still a deficit there, and everybody's feeling the stress from that. Can you speak briefly, and if I hope the city attorney provides me a long leash here. I'm sure he'll chime in if he needs to.
I'm always listening.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if how things are going. How does dispatch work between CARES and the police department and the fire department? Is there one coordinated effort there? I've been hearing that there's been some snags on that front and some learning that's going on. And again, just an opportunity to speak freely at will about some of those.
For a new program,
challenges.
it has had few issues. There's been, a couple things working out the dispatches, how we use a emergency dispatch protocol. So it was kind of set in my dispatchers' minds that, a man down goes in as a Delta response, which means they're going lights and sirens because we can't verify the status of breathing. So we've really had to change that mindset to now we have this additional unit and maybe a man down isn't typically needing emergency services. They're just needing, some food or a ride to the shelter. So for a new program, there was not a whole lot of issues. We dispatch for the care unit. We take the calls. We go through all the protocols that the fire department has set in place for us. So it's been really good. They take a large amount of calls for us, and that we've really depended on them. It's been a great addition to our center.
Well, just know that you have my support in terms of any technology upgrades that are necessary in order to transition as smoothly as possible into a seamless operation that keeps everybody informed, that keeps the individual who's at the center of a dispatch call, as one individual and not 3 separate database points, so that we can track those narratives as well as possible and make adjustments as needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I move to read resolution number 2022-47 by title only.
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. City Clerk.
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Williams, City of Page, Grand Canyon National Park, Glen Canyon National Park Service, and the City of Flagstaff for the Arizona 911 Grant Program.
I move to adopt resolution number 2022-47.
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Do I need to do a separate motion for the approval? Okay, well, I move to approve the acceptance of the grant award from the Arizona Department of Administration, Office of Grants and Federal Resources in the amount of $544,000, $544,095 for the 911 budget for Coconino County fiscal year 2023.
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. We're down to agenda item 12A, our discussion items. This is the discussion regarding case number PZ-19-00248, city's proposed amendment to the zoning code to modify the existing outdoor lighting standards. Ms. Antal.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. Tiffany Antal, Zoning Code Manager. I'm here tonight at the finalization of what has been a very long process. As you can tell, this case number goes back to 2019. So this has been a long-going effort. I'm just putting it in pretty wrapping and passing it all in front of you. So I do want to go really quickly, since this is a fairly large amendment, through what it means. It is essentially a rewrite in large aspects of the entire outdoor lighting standards. This has been very technical, and so we've had a lot of help in this process, working with lighting professionals and experts throughout Flagstaff, two of whom are here tonight. So the proposed zoning code text amendment is to align with the joint land use study, the Coconino Joint Land Use Study that was completed a couple years ago. It has specific goals for us to achieve. This includes extending lighting zone 2 in Flagstaff to cover all of existing lighting zone 3, to modernize measurement of absolute lumens for LEDs, to revise residential average use standards and update design standards to encourage overhang or canopy mounting for outdoor lighting in lighting zone 1. So I'll go over these in more detail as we go through the code. So first off, just running through the section of the code, most of the code structure is the same throughout every section, or every chapter has its own same structure. So we always start with the purpose statement. This purpose statement has been updated and shortened. I don't know if you've all seen our zoning code. It's a very big block of cheese, so we're trying to put it on a diet. So this is our first attempt at least eliminating 2 paragraphs. So we've shortened our purpose statement. Everybody's in agreement. Everybody still feels good with it. So compliance with the zoning code and permit requirements, all we've done to this section is revise it and provide detailed language about what the permitting requirements actually are. And in applicability, the requirements in this section really have just been streamlined and reorganized with minimal substantive changes. So we just like to shuffle things around. And then the establishment of lighting zone. This really gets to our big first substantive change, and that is right now the city of Flagstaff is broken into 3 separate lighting zones, 1, 2, and 3. Lighting zone 1 ends at about Woody Mountain Road. Lighting zone 2 starts from about where Woody Mountain Road is, goes over to about where Sunnyside is located. From Sunnyside out further east, that's lighting zone 3. So what this does is actually eliminate lighting zone 3, put everything remainder in the city in lighting zone 2. So every use that you have in lighting zone 3, you already have existing in lighting zone 2. The lighting standards are a bit more restrictive in lighting zone 2 than they are in lighting zone 3. We have done some substantial outreach in lighting zone 3. We reached out to every commercial property owner in lighting zone 3, postcard, invited them to a community meeting. We did not hear anything. So this is the first big substantive change. So next up, we have our general lighting requirements. This is where we're seeing our other 2 big changes. So many of the requirements of this section have been streamlined and reorganized. The maximum total outdoor light output standards updated to include the absolute lumens for LEDs rather than using a multiplier specific for LEDs. So what does that mean? So the simple thing is we used to use light fixtures with bulbs. So our preferred lighting source was always either a low pressure sodium, sometimes we would allow high pressure sodium, but for the most part, low pressure sodium.
With bulbs, they all start out, and when they would come with a cut sheet, it lists sort of the initial lumens that are going to come out of that light fixture. But we know with bulbs that the light emitted out of that bulb will decrease over time. So our total lumens, because those were the preferred lighting sources, were actually higher than what you would be allowed with an LED. An LED is not a bulb, it's a diode. It doesn't lose the same amount of light over time. It stays consistent throughout. So we had always built in, when we started allowing LEDs, we built in a multiplier. So with those numbers that, the numbers per acre that were allowed, we always had to apply a multiplier when using an LED. Complicated the whole detail. Low pressure sodium, high pressure sodium, those fixtures are out of the mix now. We're 100% LED. All of the numbers have been accrued essentially for LEDs. So basically taking that multiplier and just using it as what the standards are for each lighting zone. The residential average has also been lowered from 10,000 lumens in lighting zone 1, and from 10,000 lumens to 1,500 lumens in lighting zone 1, and from 10,000 lumens to 5,000 lumens in lighting zone 2 for residential uses. So let's talk about this. We don't have a lot of houses in lighting zone 1. It's primarily Timber Sky. Timber Sky has already imposed additional outdoor lighting standards on itself. So there's not a likelihood of seeing a lot more single-family homes, but if they are, we won't want to work with them to get them to a lower level of light as we move on. 5,000 lumens is still a lot. 10,000 lumens was huge. As a homeowner, 10,000 lumens is actually a lot for each single-family home. So 5,000 lumen trues that for what really we are expecting to see and what generally is a part of a single-family residential home. And lastly, standards have been added for fixtures not mounted on a building or canopy in lighting zone 1. So there are you get more light or more light fixtures if you put it under a canopy, if you attach it to a building under an eave, which is what we want to see in lighting zone 1. Again, lighting zone 1 is a relatively very small portion of the city. We also do some clarification in terms of special uses. Special uses include service station canopies and outdoor recreation facilities. These are two of the high light output. Recreational facilities generally tend to have a time limit affiliated with them, and service station canopies need generally a higher light source. So we have changed smaller substantive changes in regards to these special uses. And then exceptions. The section includes minor changes to airport lighting to specify that this provision does not apply to private helipads or landing strips. And we added some small clarifications to holiday lightings. In terms of residential exemptions, right now, if your single-family home is legal non-conforming, meaning it doesn't meet its setbacks or it's on a lot that's too small, there's a residential exemption built in our code that if your house were destroyed, you can rebuild it in its exact footprint, so long as you meet the building code, and now, so long as you meet the outdoor lighting standards. And then lastly, definitions. So this is the last of the substantive changes that you're going to see in the outdoor lighting code, and this aligns with the SLEDs, so the street lighting work that has been done through our transportation engineering division. And this change is to the definition of what is narrow spectrum amber LED. Our code allows narrow spectrum amber LED to be between 585 and 595 nanometers. This will change it to 589 to 595. I know that seems relatively small. It takes the approved light fixtures we have, probably reduces them to about half. So this will make it a little bit tougher to find those approved lighting sources, but they're being created more and more often, and not just for the reasons that we have in this community, but also for other locations have turtle lighting. It's the same set of standards, same set of issues. And lastly, when we do look at this code, we'll need to meet the findings. They're important. and I won't read them to you because you've seen them before. And then if you have any questions, we do have some folks from the Naval Observatory here with us today. You know, they have been an active participant in assisting us and providing us with technical guidance because I'm not a lighting expert. So there you go.
Thank you, Ms. Antal. Council, do we have any questions, comments?
Sure.
Go for it.
Thank you. I'm really excited about this. I thank you for all the hard work that has gone into this, and thank you for honoring the direction of council and the needs of the Naval Observatory as much as possible. Really looking forward to this update and good enforcement of this. Just for the sake of public conversation and discourse, could you speak a little bit to NAH's proposed move north of Fort Tuttle? And I'm looking at the maps here, and I'm not entirely certain, based on the boundaries here, whether that facility would straddle Zone 1 and Zone 2, or entirely be in Zone 2. So I'll start there.
Sure. So NAH will be located entirely within Zone 2. What makes their site unique is that they will have a building that's much taller than our typical height allowances. They're also unique in the fact that that tower, the tallest part of their tower, is also a residential tower. So it does mean that indoor lighting is on in a more regular occurrence throughout the evening. We have met with the Naval Observatory because this particular location is in line of sight with the Naval Observatory. So we know this is of particular concern. We have met with them. We have talked about it. We are still finessing where the hospital is going with their outdoor lighting, and there are a couple of details I do want to run through the Naval Observatory. Luckily, I do have their ear these days. So, and just get their perspective on if these kinds of items will work. It so far does include indoor blinds and shades, which we all know there's pros and cons to that. And then there's some light reflectance coming out of, because there are large windows, panes of glass on the building as well. So looking at what the light emittance will be from those particular facilities. But, you know, NAH has been made 100% aware that we're concerned about what will be, especially above the tree line, and what could be visible from the Naval Observatory in regards to that residential tower. And so, you know, it's an ongoing discussion, and you know, if we can always build in caveats as conditions of approval. If we don't come up with the perfect solution today, I'm sure we can come up with a perfect solution when that structure is built. And we can build a condition of approval that will make sure that we're in alignment with what our needs are in terms of the community for outdoor lighting.
Thank you. Of course, I've been a strong proponent of making sure that we're protecting our dark sky if that move were to occur, and I will continue to be a strong proponent. And since we have some representatives from the Naval Observatory here today, I'd hate for you to just sit there all afternoon and not come talk to us. Maybe we can have you come up, if that's okay, Mayor. I'd like to hear from you your thoughts about that potential move. But more generally, we have some new council representation here that may not have been part of this conversation over the past 4 years. Could you maybe just take a few moments to remind us of the importance of your mission and why we need a dark sky here in Flagstaff and why we need to maintain that low light dome?
Mayor Deasy, members of the council, my name is Fred Verba. I've been an astronomer at the Naval Observatory for many years now, 46 years, I think. Yeah, let me just kind of segue into your question by starting out with, you know, the city and county have had very successful lighting code for the last 25, 30 years, as, you know, evidenced by the fact that Flagstaff's become the world's first international dark sky city. I think it's been good for just the public representation of Flagstaff and all that. But the observatories, I don't want to speak for Lowell, but certainly USNO has been involved with helping the formation of the code from technical standpoint. And what's happened in the last few years is basically a technological revolution. As Tiffany had mentioned, it was our old current code, your old current code, basically is based around high pressure and low pressure sodium, fixtures, which are being obviated by LEDs because of their longevity, and there's a lot of things you can do with LED lighting that you can't do with sort of gaseous tubes. You can spotlight the light much better. You have a lot more control over the spectral emission of the light, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, our mission has been for a long time, we both do astrophysics, and we do probably about 80% of our work now is based on national defense. We're sort of the keepers of the celestial reference frame, which all navigation is based on. This is based on sort of actual international agreements. So we do a lot of work in just keeping that reference frame current, because stars, which it's easy to think of them as these fixed points of light in the sky, but they move around. So your catalogs always have to be updated. Objects change in their brightness, that sort of thing. So we keep track of all these kind of things. We have some areas where we work on the orientation of the Earth, the rotation of the Earth, et cetera, et cetera. We have a backup group here that works on that. So I think we're a pretty important component of national defense, because if we don't do it, nobody else basically will. And we never really know how our mission can change. Like I say, I've been here over 40 years, and the kinds of things that we focused on in terms of national defense, the emphases have changed, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 times. I mean, like 20 years ago, we were very much working on the global positioning system of satellites and updating their orbits and understanding how they degrade, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're moving on to understanding things like stellar binarity, et cetera. We just built a new telescope, which I think we're going to have first light on. Our project scientist is Stephen next month. Okay, a couple months. It's been a long-term project, but it's the largest telescope that the Department of Defense owns, or at least the Navy owns. That's an operational telescope. So it has a mission that's going to be involved with understanding the specific nature of stars and their binarity, which that's a really important thing for understanding, getting the accurate positions. We do things down to just fractions of a thousandth of an arcsecond in terms of positioning, which takes a lot of work and a lot of technology. So, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. I'm sure there will be new mission drivers that I'm not aware of at this point. So, we just want to maintain our base to be a practical operational base for as long as we can. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you very much. And then, is there anything you'd like to add to what Tiffany was saying about the potential NAH relocation?
Yeah, simple answer is no. We're concerned about this, right? Because they were talking about these are 14-story buildings. So there's certainly going to be line of sight. We worry about all sorts of things like rotating beacons from the airport. We worry about communication towers that can interfere with our electronics, particularly driving things like CCDs and array detectors, et cetera, et cetera. The NAH proposal, it's a huge complex. We've had at least one major discussion with them. I think Tiffany was involved with that also. They seem to not only understand our concerns, but seem to be quite sympathetic to our concerns. But that's been 7, 8, 9 months ago. With COVID, time kind of flies. So I haven't really heard much back from what some of the ameliorations might be. To that, I think we're looking at this right now. We'd like to see what their amended plans would be, and we'd have to react to that one way or another. Obviously, this is a city issue, not a Naval Observatory issue, but if needs be, I guess we'll make comments on it if we think it's going to be really detrimental to our existence.
That's fair enough. Finally, my last question for you is about these new lighting, the amendment here, and Flagstaff's future growth. I'm looking at this map. There's a lot of room for Flagstaff to expand out to its borders. So what happens with that light dome, even under these current lighting zone situations, as that yellow space starts to fill in with homes and businesses?
Right. I think our biggest concern is state lands and how that might be traded away, because that's an area largely to the west and south of where we're at right now. So we did an internal study. This goes back probably, I was heavily involved with 2017, and actually was pretty contemporaneous with the initial JLIS, trying to figure out what would happen to us if all of that land was developed as single-family residential. I mean, at some level, commercial kinds of developments are kind of hard to deal with. I mean, you know, what if I've always said, what if General Motors comes in and wants to buy a swath of land and here's 25,000 jobs or something? How would the city react to that? You can't really plan for that in any kind of modeling for the future. But we feel that with this ordinance, that we could live with all those state lands developed as long as they're primarily single-family residential. And multiple family residential actually works in our favor because you get more people in a given plot of land. So sort of the worst case modelable, if that's a word, circumstance was single-family residential. And we were fairly comfortable with it, but you know, obviously things can happen that we can't model.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the additional time for those questions. Thank you for speaking with us. We don't have you up here very often. It's really nice to hear from you.
Appreciate it.
And I hope you feel appreciated by the city of Flagstaff, and I hope you continue to feel heard.
Very much so. There's no question about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. All right. Any additional discussion on this? I'm happy with the recommended modifications and would be happy to move forward as is.
I'd love to make a motion.
Oh, I don't believe we need a motion on this one because it's a discussion items. But if you have any
I want to make a
add-ons,
motion anyway.
or we can get the general thumbs up. But Councilmember Salas.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Antol, and our stellar astronomers from the Naval Observatory for your valuable contribution in shaping this proposed amendment. I'm a little bit concerned when only one attended the open house in August. So can we take a look at the public hearings coming up in, I think it's in page 604 of the packet. It's under the public participation plan. I understand that there will be more public hearing with the planning and zoning, and of course with council for 2 more dates. So are there any additional efforts that we can look into to make sure we reach out to residents and HOAs and business organizations? Because I've heard from a few business owners, but it has something to do with implementation of the current code in terms of some business felt singled out on some kind of code compliance. And of course, my canned response is we're a bit short-staffed right now when it comes to, I mean, across the board. So, and we do best. Our staff is doing its best as with what we have in terms of staffing resources. So, but there's just got, a business owner had to, comply with the code, whereas, a friend who's also a business owner did not get, approached by our enforcement. So it's more of an enforcement, has nothing to do with the proposed here. But my suggestion is, if we reach out to business communities, and of course, our public hearings will be publicized, and additional effort in outreach to our community will be helpful. I mean, it just breaks my heart that only one person showed up at an open house in the beginning of August.
And it was Nat White. I wanted to just let you know what we have done in terms of outreach. So we did have an article in Flagstaff Business News in July. I received one comment from that saying, "Thank you, your article is factually correct." We held an outreach meeting. We did notice each individual commercial property owner independently. We did focus on those commercial property owners. We had a note put in every single water bill for the city of Flagstaff. And granted, you gotta look, but it was there. So every water bill, we had a note because we knew that this was such a big potential. We have tried to do lots of outreach in this regards. And I know that some business owners, because we take a much more proactive approach with outdoor lighting enforcement, because we have a code person dedicated to this, that there definitely, people have been seeing the impacts of what some of that enforcement will look like. But we've determined that that's important. We've hired staff to do that. We're trying to work with folks proactively. I did also reach out to all of the electrical contractors in town, who generally are the ones coming in and pulling the lighting permits and working with business owners so that they would be aware. I did reach out to the Chamber of Commerce as well. So we're definitely trying. These are definitely interesting times in terms of public participation. So I was a little sad nobody came to my party.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you. You all have a great night.
You too. All right, well, with that, we are down to agenda item 12B for our discussion items on water conservation strategic plan update.
Just get my slides up. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tamara Lawless, Water Conservation Manager, and I'm here tonight to give you an update on how things have been going since we passed the strategic plan for water conservation. So as a reminder, the plan was originally passed in December of 2020. It is a 20-year plan, so we have things to implement through 2040. We did a really extensive public outreach process when we were working on the plan. We assessed our current conservation actions, and we looked at some future ones we were considering. And after we finished the plan, we did receive some awards. We got a 2020 Excellence Award from WaterSense, an EPA program that is a really key partner for us that I'll kind of get into more as we progress. And we also got on the leaderboard for the Alliance for Water Efficiency. We were the first Arizona utility to get on there, so we were really proud of that. They've actually revised the criteria now, so we'll be doing another attempt at the new leaderboard next year. Some of the goals that we had for our strategic plan were: one, we wanted to quantify water savings. We wanted to know how much water we really would be saving by doing these various conservation actions, and that quantification helped us select those future activities that we were going to invest in. We also wanted to ensure that there was community benefit for the programming that we selected, so we wanted to make sure there was good coverage across commercial and residential, and that we were looking at indoor and outdoor uses. And council had a former goal of establishing Flagstaff as a leader in water conservation, and I think we succeeded. Our program is very well regarded. I actually was asked to fly up to Washington State this year and give some talks about our program. They've actually got some utilities on the eastern side of the state that use way, way, way more water per person than us, and it's a pretty dry part of that state. And so they're looking to us as kind of an example community of what they might do. So these graphs you've probably seen before, but it just kind of shows how the implementation of this plan and code changes and plumbing changes over time kind of change the trajectory of our demand for water, potable water specifically. So the graph on the left shows that, previous to all these efforts, we would have had to look for an additional water supply by 2034. And by implementing all these things, we can delay that until 2047. That green curve at the top is our anticipated population growth. That's using a 2.2% growth rate, which is an average over the previous decade. So we were able to kind of shove that further in time, and also the amount of additional water that we need, which is that kind of brownish orange color, is much smaller. So that gives us flexibility in terms of what does that future supply look like if it's a smaller amount and we have more time to anticipate it. And essentially we're purchasing that water from the community, right? We're figuring out ways to use less water per person, and that is way cheaper than having to invest in additional supply. So conservation generally is considered the best investment you can make when you're thinking about long-term water planning. So some of the pre-existing program that we had that will continue is our public outreach efforts, like our annual Water Awareness Month and Mayor's Challenge. We do an annual 4th grade water festival. We actually did that last week, so we've got 800 to 1,000 4th graders that get together and learn about water. We have consultations that we do for residential and commercial customers, where our team actually comes in person, looks at fixtures, looks for leaks, gives recommendations, talks about rebates that are available, so very hands-on. We're also, as a utility, doing meter replacements across the community, so we're getting kind of newer, higher-tech water meters. Some of them have been in the ground for over 20 years, so the newer ones are more accurate, and they also have more functionality for us to see trends, on the site level. Some of the meters I can look now at a daily usage, whereas before I could only see a monthly usage. And once you kind of scale up that technology, you can even look at hourly reads, so it can really change the landscape of how we assess use and help people find leaks faster too. My team does code enforcement of the Water Conservation Ordinance. So we drive around in the summer, we look for people watering at the wrong time of day or on the wrong day, and talk to them about, hey, we have a code here. We don't water in the middle of the day because it all evaporates and it's not useful. We also can enforce leaks. So if a business has a leak running for weeks on end and a customer notices it, they might call us and say, oh, I noticed somebody's faucet, at this restaurant or at a grocery store has been running for weeks. Can you talk to them? So we can go in and say, hey, we actually have an ordinance that says you gotta repair a leak if you have it. We also give away efficient fixtures. So shower heads, aerators, some of these that are pretty low cost for us to invest in, we just give out for free because the savings really pays back for us. If we're just paying a couple bucks for a shower head or an aerator and we're gonna see 50, 70% savings on that fixture over the lifetime, it makes sense for us to just give them out to our community. I mentioned rebates, so we actually increased, because of this strategic plan, we increased the efficiency requirements for toilets. So prior to this, we were rebating toilets that were 1.28 gallons per flush, which was what our code is. And the consultant we worked with said, hey, you gotta incentivize people that are the heroes, right? That are beating the code, because everybody should be meeting the code if they need a new toilet. So now we give rebates for 1.1 gallons per flush or lower, and those fixtures have to be WaterSense certified. I mentioned that's a key partnership for us. WaterSense is an EPA program. They do a lot of testing of fixtures. They make sure that not only are they really efficient, but they work well. So with toilets, they're flushing various objects down the toilet to make sure that they flush well. They also, do tests to make sure shower heads are actually able to spray off shampoo. So they're really careful at giving their label only to fixtures that work really well. And so we make sure that everything that we're giving out and that we're rebating has that approval. And those fixtures are cost effective with other fixtures. So it's not costing the consumer more. It just is a guarantee that they're going to be satisfied with that upgrade. During the pandemic, we did see some slowing of participation, like in our commercial rebates. I think it was just a time when some businesses were struggling and it was hard to get into some of them in person, but we did do some toilet replacements at Doubletree and Roadway Inn. And another recent investment we made was some new high-efficiency shower heads at our building, the Aquaplex. We got some more durable ones that we think are going to work well there. We also recently did a non-revenue water audit. So essentially that is an assessment of the water that you produce compared to the water you sell. And you look at what's the difference, right? Typically you produce more than you actually sell and you say, where did the water go? So we did a recent assessment of the calendar year 2020 water data, and it showed an annual loss of approximately 300 million gallons at a cost to the city of $1.13 million. So what do we do? One thing we are planning to do first is just to improve our data validity. So, they give a score up to 100 on how accurate they think the data is that they assess, and we got a 55. So by checking the meters that enter into our system, the potable water meters from the wells and the Lake Mary treatment plant, and just making sure those meters are working well, we can improve the accuracy of this number. But you can see that there's also real losses. So this blue bar in the left-hand column is water that we think is actually lost. So leaks and things like that. And then the red chunk, which is also fairly sizable, is metering inaccuracies. So that's what I was saying before. Some of our meters just need upgrading. And if we're under reading, then we're selling the customer a certain amount of water, but they're getting a little bit more than the meter says. And so that plays into the cost. You can see that even though real losses are bigger on the left bar, they're actually a smaller chunk of the total lost money. The lost money is somewhat more embedded in those metering issues. So kind of coming up with some long-term plans on how we use this data into the future. We also launched a school retrofit program as part of the strategic plan. So we invest $10,000 annually in K-12 schools, and that requires no match on the place of the school. So it's just money that we can invest essentially in new fixtures, more efficient fixtures. So we've recently worked with Flagstaff Junior Academy. We replaced lots of toilets, made those more efficient, replaced aerators. We found some leaks that we fixed. So for that campus specifically, the estimated water savings was 44,000 gallons annually. When we form these partnerships, we also get opportunities to do education in some of those schools, which is always a nice opportunity for us. We also recently worked with Mountain School and Haven Montessori again, doing toilet replacements, or if they have the commercial style toilet, which is kind of mounted to the wall. We've been doing diaphragm replacements so it can use less water without actually having to replace the whole fixture, so that's very cost effective. Again, lots of aerators looking for leaks, sometimes providing new faucets and things like that. We also did kind of a revamp of our rain barrel program update. You might have heard me talk before about the fact that in general, a small rain barrel is not gonna change a household's water consumption trends, and so the strategic plan that we did essentially said, you guys are just putting a little too much of your time into rain barrels because the community loves to get rain barrels. And so we thought about how can we still provide rain barrels without putting so much of our staff time in. So we've done more work with volunteers to get some of those retrofits done, not just on our own staff time. We get those barrels primarily from Joy-Con. So it's kind of a community reuse. And so like I said, we've been using volunteers to do some of those retrofits. We kind of reduce the amount of time that we spend cleaning kind of the goo out of the barrels as well. And we've been just partnering with Habitat and Eric Supply for the screen material that goes on the top to keep mosquitoes out. I guess they had an issue where some of that was getting sent to the landfill, so we're kind of diverting some of that screen as well. And then we also changed the kind of educational approach to really help people understand how we use water outside and to convince them to get involved in some of our other rebate programs. So we use the rain barrel program as a way to kind of get them into all the other things that we do. So just, you know, for the numbers, we've had 9 workshops so far this year, and we've given out almost 150 totes and barrels out into the community. And we've got another 250 people that got added to the wait list. So just very popular. People really want to get a rain barrel, and we want to support that and also get them into some of the other things that we do. So there were 2 kind of general code proposals that came out of our strategic plan as well. One of them is to look at requiring WaterSense certification for faucets, shower heads, and toilets in new developments. So one, you know, obviously I said WaterSense certification has kind of a heavy weight to it because they do so much testing, and it also would essentially change over time. So if in 10 years WaterSense decides that now they're going to move their certification so that all the toilets have to get, you know, 1.1 gallons per flush or less, which is right now a premium flush, our code would move with the WaterSense certification. So that's one reason that it could be positive to do that. So we are going to be doing some outreach this winter to contractors and plumbers to talk about what that change would mean. We would not be the first city to implement such a code. Sierra Vista, Arizona actually already has like a WaterSense requirement. New York City does as well. And so do several states. So Colorado and Georgia have statewide requirements that these fixtures have that certification. So we definitely would not be reinventing the wheel here. There are codes out there that we can compare to. We also had a recommendation to look at our landscape code. So one piece of that is the plant list. So the plants that developers look at when they're developing a new property. It's recommended that we kind of look at that list, make sure that we're encouraging plenty of drought-tolerant native plants, and make sure that none of the plants that are recommended are potentially could cause problems, such as like an invasive species that could spread in our community. The other piece of that is we want to have conversations on how can we do a better job of just passively using rainwater as it runs across a property, either, you know, through the gutter system or just across the landscape. Can we essentially contour in ways that the landscaping is just being passively watered so that we're lowering the total potable requirement for maintaining that landscape into the future? So we're probably going to start with that with like a work group or advisory committee in this next year. There are a lot of, you know, kind of interested parties in this topic and try to figure out how can we tackle this. We also have some funds for innovation, so that gives us flexibility each year to kind of try out new technologies. One thing we did this year is we have 17 households testing this low water turf. It's a grass seed mix called Pearls Premium. They're always at like the water conservation conferences touting that, you know, their grass, you know, requires way less water and way less mowing. So we decided to have some households test it out, and they can, you know, follow up with us and say, how did it go? And if it went positively for them, then the next scale would maybe be to try it on a city property and see, you know, what would it look like if we tried this like low water turf. Some other ideas that we're looking forward to in the future would be maybe partnering with plant nurseries if we have some native plants. Sometimes supply is an issue, and we hear from residents and businesses that they want to do native plants, but they can't find them in the nurseries. So would there be ways to partner and say, okay, we're going to give out 200 vouchers for people to get penstemons, and you can grow 200, and we will reimburse you as you sell them, so we can, you know, increase the supply of these, you know, native plants in our community. We're also looking to partner with housing. So that was something we considered in the strategic plan, and Flagstaff hasn't always come up as that being a high priority because the number of people that are in the low income bracket tend to be renters. They don't tend to be homeowners, and usually these types of programs are only for owner occupied housing. But housing came and said, hey, we've got these grants that are for owner occupied, you know, low income homeowners. Let's just try it. Let's see if we can get some people that have leaks that really need to be addressed or fixtures that really need to be updated. And so because that partnership is kind of pre-existing and they're ready to go, we're going to look at their next batch of the CBGB grants and see if we can get a water conservation partnership there. Excuse me. And then one more item, we are looking at drip irrigation systems for large rainwater catchment systems. So I mentioned that kind of a small rain barrel doesn't make a big difference, but a huge system, we're talking 1,000 to 3,000 gallon rainwater collection systems, those can really make a big difference. And so how can we partner on those and do like more sophisticated drip irrigation systems for people that are interested in those? I wanted to just quickly also highlight our community water use trends. So you can see that over time, that kind of blue bar has been dropping, which is the gallons per person per day. And we, reached a low of 93 last year. So we are on trend to essentially meet or exceed the goals on our plan so far. So far it's looking very good. So just to wrap up what our next steps are, we're going to continue to implement the new programs in the plan. There are a few that have not been launched yet. So one of those is an outdoor water budgeting tool, which is essentially for large tracts of lawn. So we're talking like a city park or a soccer field. You can essentially do a calculation that says this field needs this many gallons to stay healthy, and then you try to work with the manager of that space to not exceed that amount. So it's not about eliminating lawn, it's just about not overwatering it. We also have some funds for higher education partnerships. We have money set aside each year to partner with NIU or with CCC, and essentially that works somewhat similarly to the K-12 funds that I mentioned, except they have to meet us with a one-to-one match. So if we're investing $5,000 in a project, they also invest $5,000 in a project. I mentioned that housing partnership. We're also going to produce an annual tracking sheet on the progress for this plan, so it'll be a little bit easier to kind of access and look at how things are going, including, how many businesses and residents are participating in various programs and what the water use trends are. And then I also wanted to mention that Water Services is working on a rate study, and our plan essentially said that conservation needs to be considered in the rate study. So we need to look at ways that rates can influence use behavior, and a requirement that the consultant had experience in that area was in the scope of work. So that was part of that process, and when you see the contract for the rate study come through, know that the process of selecting that consultant required that they knew how conservation behaviors are affected by rates. So that's my highlight of what we've been up to for the last 2 years, and I'm happy to answer questions or take comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Council, do we have any questions? Councilman Rasslin.
If I may, thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, Tamara. Your work is so important. You mentioned NAU. I want to tell a quick story, which will lead to a question for you. So my wife is a professor. She teaches a conservation biology class, and I don't know the details of the assignment, but towards the end of the semester, her students were asked to share what they've learned in terms of conservation and what behavior changes they might want to make. And on more than one occasion, she got responses from her undergraduate students. I've learned that water is a precious resource, and I should stop taking 45-minute showers every day. So if you extrapolate that out to the entire student body of NAU, those living on campus and those living off campus, I see a huge opportunity for more outreach and more education. A lot of times students are temporary visitors to our town. They're not necessarily thinking long-term, but I do know that our youth and our students are socially conscious-minded, and when they're given the opportunity to learn about this, they can make those changes. And Tamara, I just want to lift, I was talking about the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Partnership, of which you are a part of. I just want to lift you up as the community outreach coordinator. And thank you for that work and the fourth grade water contest that comes out of that. I'm wondering if you want to speak just briefly, if you want to tout that. Now that I'm giving you the chance to do so, you can speak more authoritatively about it than I can, and couple that into how we're reaching out to our student body and visitors who aren't necessarily attuned to our water conservation efforts and the need for them.
Sure. It's a lot to speak to, but yeah, we do the annual fourth grade water ethic contest. So fourth graders, not just in Flagstaff, but around the Coconino Plateau, so Page and Grand Canyon, get the opportunity to submit artwork and essays on why water is precious and important. And if you've seen the signs in the bathrooms, that comes out of those. So yeah, we're doing that again this year. I'm passing the torch to my colleague Emily while I'm out on leave to take over as chair of the outreach committee for that group. And we have, from the city perspective, we have an annual contract with Project Wet, which does statewide, really incredible water education that we have them do outreach in the K-12 schools. So they take some of that and try to instill some of those ideas and values into our K-12 students here in Flagstaff on why water is important and precious. And I think you often find that the kids that are at elementary age are kind of on board already. And I don't know, some kind of disconnect happens by the time they become college students, right? That they forget some of that. But, NAU, they have a new-ish sustainability manager, Abraham Henn, and he previously did work there with like these coaches, right? So they would coach a college student to work with their dormitory to encourage people to take a 5-minute shower, right? And to talk about that. So I think I'm curious to see how he changes that into the future as he's taken on this new leadership role. So hopefully that expands this like kind of peer-to-peer teaching and learning where, NAU students are talking to each other about why you shouldn't take a 45-minute shower, right? And I think as they implement some of their, their climate plans and things, that hopefully some of the conversations happen about outdoor use too, because obviously when you look at the balance, a lot of times you see higher consumptions outside, especially somewhere like NAU with a lot of lawn. So that's another place that our partnerships can come in. So last year we did partner on some funds on them revising their irrigation systems. So making sure that they're weather sensitive and that in the places that they do want to have a beautiful lawn, they're at least not overwatering it or watering during rain events. So I agree that there's tons of opportunity for partnership on making sure that they're, kind of continuing to move the needle in a positive direction. And just from a data perspective too, it's difficult for us as a utility because they have limited meters that enter in that system. And so the, kind of data resolution that I see is lower than what they might be managing on site. So it's not always easy for me to tell how much of their water is going into various buildings or outdoor use, and that's why creating those partnerships and keeping them positive and strong is really important. But yeah, I mean, we definitely continue to try to get out into the schools personally when we can and during events like Festival of Science. And like I said, we have like this kind of paid partnership where we make sure that that message is getting out there.
Thank you, Tamara.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, council? Thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
With that, we're down to agenda item 12C. We got the whole crew. Right on. Over the airport drainage plan improvements update.
All right. Oh, we got them all behind me. All right. You got my back. I like that. Mayor and Council, Stacy Breckland-Eggs, Grants, Contracts Emergency Management Director. We're here for the airport drainage plan, existing conditions update. This project is grant funded from ADOT Aeronautics. You approved that grant back in January of 2020. And then later we went out to bid for consulting services, which we did in June of 2021. You approved a consulting services agreement to Mead and Hunt. So they are here now. They've been working diligently with this team and with the airport team on this. And so they're going to give you an update on the existing conditions. But in the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Adam Maley, Senior Project Manager. He's going to say a few words and then introduce the team. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to hear this presentation. As Stacy indicated, we came to you before to move forward with this particular project. It's very important for the airport, as their drainage master plan was outdated and it was time to refresh that. Being that there's a lot of potential with joining potential development, for example, J.W. Powell, we feel this particular project's also going to help in that particular endeavor as well that the city is going to be going through. We thought this was a good time to kind of bring back and just share with you real quickly some of the findings that we found so far. We've gone past the discovery, we've gone into the modeling portion of this, and we've got some really good information here. And just to kind of wrap this up, this particular project is scheduled to be completed towards the end of January, so we thought it would be prudent to at least come back with what we've discovered thus far. One of the, or a couple of the items that we've asked this amazing consulting firm to look at is not only the existing conditions per se of what we have out at the airport and what's been transpiring since the last update. There's been some sizable development on the airport property itself since that was done. So we asked them to model that, and also to take our capital improvements plan that we're looking at for the next 5 to 6 years to incorporate some of those projects into that and what that would look like and what are some of the effects downstream. And the downstream area is going to be the bow and arrow wash, so that's where all of this will go. So I just want to say one last time, thank you very much for your attention on this, and it's my pleasure to introduce Carrie with Mead & Hunt, and she'll be giving you the presentation. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name's Carrie Nichols, and I'm a Water Resources Engineer with Mead & Hunt, and I've brought here with my team Bob Thane as Project Engineer. I serve as the Project Manager. I also have Scott Van Gumpel. He's the overall Program Manager for our on-call contract. And then Brad, oh my goodness, Brad, Mikulicki. Project Engineer with Mead & Hunt as well. So thank you for your time this evening. Hopefully we'll share a little bit of our passion about stormwater with you. So first off, I wanted to just give an overview of what the airport drainage master plan goals are. We're looking to provide a comprehensive guide to stormwater management, as Adam mentioned, associated with future build-out and development of the airport properties. We really want to provide a good roadmap for the airport to be a good steward of the environment and their position within the community. So the airport drainage master plan will include a surface stormwater drainage assessment, looking at collection, conveyance, quantity, and quality design. And our objectives are to provide environmental protections in support of regional stormwater management goals and strategies. So I'll first give it just an overview of what that master plan project contains. We're looking at the existing conditions, so an inventory of the current conditions out at the airport. As Adam mentioned, there's been quite a bit of development out there over the past year, so we want to capture that and reflect the current conditions so we have a good baseline study to build off of for the proposed condition. So today we'll talk about the existing condition, but next step we'll be moving into the proposed conditions assessment. We'll be looking at short-term airport improvements, so what's planned out for the next 0 to 5 years, and then more immediate and long-term airport improvements. So we're really providing a good plan for long-term development at the airport as well. And we're looking to complete that effort in early 2023. Then after that, we dive into the actual proposed drainage improvements and look at different concept development plans for what could go along with those short-term airport development improvements and any known or potential flooding problem areas. This will be, we'll also have high-level recommendations to provide a roadmap for those longer-term projects as well. And we're looking to have the whole plan completed in the sort of spring of 2023. So before I pass it over to Bob to give an overview, this is what he'll be stepping you through, giving an overview of the past relevant airport drainage studies. We'll talk about what design codes and references really guide our study and our basis of design, the data sources we used, the hydrologic and hydraulic modeling methods used, and the calibration and verification to hone those into reality. And then we got some resultant flood depth maps, and then Bob will pass it back over to me to talk about next steps. So I'll turn it over to my project engineer, Bob.
Yes. go ahead.
Just for clarity, in terms of scope of work, sorry, I could not see this map really well, but I'm guessing the parcel that's being developed by Gentera is not it's not part of the scope of work.
Not specifically, no, council member. There is some effects that it has on our property because of the way that it is graded, a portion of it. So we're not doing a finite analysis of that particular parcel. But we are analyzing any of the water that may be coming off as direct runoff as its current conditions are.
So it's current conditions, and I'm just kind of just looking further into the futures. See if there's any impact of, the development of, is that 34.2 or 32.4? I keep switching. 34.2.
31.4. Final answer, council member.
I need coffee, right? I need another cup of coffee. But yeah, so I'm trying to kind of see if there could be some kind of interface. I know this you're embarking on this drainage master plan specific to the airport and the air park, but adjacent to it is the parcel being developed. I just hope in the future there will be some interfacing as the master developer is developing that parcel adjacent to the airport.
Councilmember, thank you for the question. And as part of their development, they will have to establish their own drainage plan, and it will incorporate some of the work that we've done through here. And again, looking at more of a synergistic approach, especially with J.W. Powell, it'll be these documents that'll help guide that other project as well. Thank you for the question.
Okay. As part of the establishing the existing conditions, we did look at prior studies that had been performed regionally, locally, for various either projects or general studies that have been performed for the city. And nothing too exciting there. As far as design codes and references with regard to how to do the modeling and how to do drainage design, we started with city code, both for stormwater management design and low impact development. Much of the actual modeling that we performed for the hydrology and hydraulics of the runoff of stormwater was informed by county standards, and the Coconino County standards also reference Maricopa County, as they have a lot of established data and established methods, so trying not to reinvent the wheel there with regard to procedures. The state also contributes some general design standards and other information. And then everything we do as far as design work has to go through the lens of the FAA advisory circulars with regard to safety, particularly with regard to wildlife attractants that don't interact well with aircraft, and some other particular guidelines with the operations of aircraft. Any of our design decisions have to be meet those standards as well. We did gather a fair amount of data to support the hydrology information. Rainfall falling on the land, of course, is affected by impervious surfaces, pavement and buildings, and being routed through storm drains and culverts. Land use can affect that, regional rainfall maps. The topography changes the way the water runs off the land, of course, with regard to steepness and concentration, and the soils take a considerable factor too with regard to how much infiltrates versus runs off. And we'll come back to that as well. As far as the actual software used for the modeling, we use a program called Flow2D that does hydrologic and hydraulic routing. You may wonder why 2D. Original software looked at one-dimensional flow, meaning it only could handle calculations for the flow going parallel to the streamline, one direction. The 2D mapping is more of a GIS-based, can look at the total topography, figure out a better solution for where flow is going. Solutions like this don't require 3D flow. We don't need to know the upward movement of water over every particular pebble, so it's more aggregated. We set up the model to include the whole study area and any drainage areas around there. The airport is kind of on a high point and has drainage leaving the property in multiple different directions. As I said, there was a lot of information gathering that went into this, land use delineation, and then other particulars that affect the actual data entry into the software regarding pavement, land slope, irrigated land, other types of land categories. Soil maps were taken from state information based off of generalized infiltration rates. The rainfall storm events that were modeled were based off of local standards, various return periods of 6-hour duration storm events. For reference, that's often kind of regional as to what length of storm works best in a particular area or is more representative, whether it's a 3-hour thunderstorm or a 24-hour event. The standard here is a 6-hour storm event. As far as the routing of stormwater, one of the things that goes into that, of course, is the actual storm drain infrastructure that is there. With regard to the overall property, the pipe system, as you can see in blue there, is pretty small and is mostly centered around the terminal, the parking lot, and the center of the airfield to remove water from the airfield. This is the most nitty-gritty slide we have up here with regard to the calibration of the modeling so far and comparison to other studies. There were variables that we could adjust within the software to try and best match gauge information on downstream channels. With that, a 5-inch infiltration depth was selected with regard to a calculation for water moving into the soil versus running off. And then we did compare that with prior studies to make sure we didn't have anything that was completely out of whack with other information. The next few slides are going to show the model results with regard to increasing storm events. In blue and other colors there, we see the accumulation of water depth. Of course, in the middle of a large storm event, everything will be wet and there'll be water everywhere. But the color patterns here are going to show ever increasing depths of water as we get to larger and larger events and more flooding. This is the 2 and 5 year. As we can see in the 10 and 25 year, a lot more visible water depth would be available on the property. And here we have the 50-year and 100-year events. You can see most of the natural terrain there is going to have a lot of flowing water on it. Most of that is absolutely natural, no concern. There are some spots on the next slide here. We did, of those spots, find some particular locations where water was getting over 2 feet deep. and we wanted to look at those to see what's happening there. Is that something to flag for future projects or analysis? The next few slides, I'll be moving through these spots from the north end, from the south end to the north end. It is a little bit granular here, and that's just based off of the GIS data. We went with the smallest amount that we could without having a computational problem. So it is kind of generalized. But in the slide here, we see off the south end of the runway, there is a spot where we are seeing some ponding. One concern could be, accumulation of water there could cause some slope stability issues. We'd want to take another look at that. On the southwestern edge here, Highway 17, we do see some additional ponding. Most of that is caused by just limited capacity of an existing culvert. Concerns there would be potential clogging or wildlife attractants.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading the legend. Could you just, it's color coded. Could you just kind of specify what this color stand for? The red, orange, yellow, blue, green.
Yeah, so the generalized, the blue is shallow depth, with under 6 inches of water. And then stepping incrementally upwards, red would be above 4 feet. I think we have, the blue and green are the 1/2 foot and 1 foot, and then the increments moving up from there are the 1 to 2, the 2 to 4, and over 4 feet. So if a person were found in a red zone, they would be swimming at that point. Does that answer the question? This slide, Area 3, is looking at the taxiway whiskey area and around some of the existing smaller hangars. We are seeing some ponding there, which could impact aircraft movements on the pavement. This is also just a little further to the west along J.W. Powell, another spot where we saw some minor ponding, flooding issues. Again, these could just be maintenance concerns, making sure conveyance structures are open and functional. There's a large orange spot here, and this one is not unexpected. There is a constructed detention pond for stormwater at that location. There is maintenance considerations and other planning considerations that we could look at this. This slide looks at a small spot just to the west of the existing terminal building, just making sure we're not going to have water overtopping over to the pavement, which could be an operational concern or safety concern. Slide 7 here is looking at the parking lot itself. There are those large orange areas in the middle there. Again, that's in the 2 to 4 foot deep range, and that is a natural low area that is used as a stormwater conveyance. So this is completely expected at this location.
Councilmember Aslan?
Yeah, this doesn't appear to include the new parking lot.
No. Yes.
Mayor, Council, Adam Yali. Councilmember Aslan, thank you for the question. It does not show it in the aerial, but we did take all of the data that we used to construct the new parking lot, and we did send that over to our consultants, and they did use that information as part of their model. So aerial just hasn't been updated. Thank you. Does that answer your question, sir?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, oops, wrong direction there. This location is off the west side of the taxiway. There is a small channel there where we're seeing deeper flows than we would expect. There are some opportunities there to make sure the drainage system is well maintained, making sure we're not having any additional, particularly maintenance issues. This is an interesting spot up at the far northeastern corner of the airfield. It's a natural low point that's semi-impounded by the grading and design of the airfield as itself. It is isolated and currently not an issue unless it becomes a maintenance concern for the perimeter road. This spot is off the west side of the airfield. There is an existing roadway and culvert there. The culvert dumps down into Bow and Arrow Wash. It's kind of a wide open natural area there. There's no specific concern at the moment besides wildlife attractants, and maintenance, again, could be and will be looked at as we move forward. And then the final spot here I know is one of interest to the airport itself, the orange spot in the middle of the airfield there between the runway and the taxiway. There is a long drainage channel there that has seen ponding issues in the past, and we'll be looking at both the capacity of that pipe system and maintenance and see if there are other opportunities for improvements. Now I will hand the mic back to Carrie here.
Thank you, Bob. So as mentioned, the existing condition assessment really sets our baseline of moving into then proposed condition assessment. So we're working with the airport on prioritizing those near-term projects based on the CIP approved plan that just came out, which forecasts projects for the next 5 years, and then making sure we prioritize or look at the priorities of the projects beyond that based on the master plan that was prepared for the airport. So we'll be bringing in those proposed condition projects, running the model through to look at what type of drainage improvements will be needed, and then mapping out what sort of concept level improvements may be implemented with those projects. We'll also be looking at some of these areas of concern and evaluating them further if they warrant some additional attention on their own as well. So this will all be pulled together in a nice complete document of the final airport drainage master plan that will serve as a guide for the airport to use for years to come. So thank you again for your attention, and we welcome any other questions you may have.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
No, that was easy. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you very much for your attention, and we'll keep moving forward on this, and some of those items that we highlighted, our plans are to address those and also share this document not only with like the J.W. Powell project, but as well as our ADOT counterparts as well, especially the area that was adjacent to I-17. So thank you for your attention tonight.
Thank you, Adam. And now that we're out of stormwater or flood water season, I'm just gonna have to get used to not seeing you in a reflector vest because I still have a double take all the time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no. Double knock with the hammer. Yep. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. That brings us down to agenda item 13, public participation. Do we have anyone online?
No, Mayor.
All right. Then that brings us to agenda item 14. Informational items, 2 from mayor, council, and staff, and future agenda item requests. With that, I'm going to start it over here with Councilmember Salas, if you'd like to kick us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echoing the public service announcement that on Monday, we will have our Indigenous Day celebration and hybrid in the morning and in person and hybrid, I believe, in the afternoon. So I appreciate all of our community partners who have come together and put this event together. And a special shout out to our Indigenous Initiative Coordinator, Ms. Rose Dohi.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. Councilmember Aslan.
I feel like I had a lot to say today, so I don't have much right now. I'll see you all Thursday for the noise ordinance town hall, I hope, and also next Monday for the Indigenous ceremonies.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, I will be here for the noise town hall at, I believe it's at 5 o'clock Thursday, right here.
6 p.m.
6? Check. I thought it was,
Hold.
pretty sure it was 5.
5.
Okay,
Yep.
well, I better come at 5 then.
So I stand corrected, or I sit corrected. Anyway, I'll be here for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sweet.
Thank you. So this weekend, I had a productive meeting with Congressman Tom O'Halloran. We talked all things Flagstaff. It was great to catch up. And a reminder that Friday is Art Walk, and I hope to see you all there.
Excellent. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick things. Transportation Commission is tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. And then the Coconino County Coconino County Recovery Court graduation is also tomorrow from 12 to 1 p.m. On Thursday, Stride Forward public meeting is occurring at noon. And I believe there's also a Stride Forward meeting if you can't make that on Saturday. I do forget the time though. And then lastly, on Thursday, there is a ribbon cutting for the Pathways program at the jail. If you're not familiar with this program, it's a wonderful effort to help get folks back into the community and on the right foot, and with the most support that the county jail can provide them. Very awesome and exciting. So ribbon cutting for that. And that's all I have. Great meeting, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This week is Mental Illness Awareness Week and has the theme of What I Wish I Had Known. The theme is focusing on the power of lived experiences and elevating the voices of those with lived experience in combating stigma and working towards recovery. Tomorrow's focus is therapy. Thursday's focus is disclosing and is National Depression Screening Day. And Friday's focus is caregiving. And folks can learn more about Mental Illness Awareness Week on www.nami.org. And to that end, and borrowing from the title of NAMI's first book, I wanted to circle back and thank Councilwoman Salas for her comments earlier in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month and sharing your story with such transparency and vulnerability. And to share to anyone else in our community who needs to hear it, you are not alone. Each of us who has faced, fought, or escaped domestic violence needs to hear that message, and so I'm so thankful to our team and all who serve and support those experiencing domestic violence for elevating that message this month. And I want to take one more moment to highlight and invite everyone in our community to commemorate October 20th as Purple Thursday. It's a national day of action, raising awareness about domestic violence and promoting healthy relationships. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember House. And other council members have touched base on a few of the upcoming things this week. So I just wanted to explain my recusal on the NAH development conversation. I want to thank city manager, city staff, and everyone for organizing that important discussion last Thursday. My other work is in the healthcare industry, and with some very recent discussions associated with that work, there is a strong potential for a conflict of interest. After the retreat, I sought the counsel of our city attorney, and he agreed with my assessment although a formal opinion statement was not requested of the city attorney's office. I will therefore not involve myself in any contract negotiations or meetings moving forward regarding NAH's prospective move, so as to respect and abide by the rule of law and dissuade any perception of impropriety on behalf of myself or the city. With that, city attorney, city manager, you got anything for this evening?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Well, it's time to get the
No, thanks.
Bam Bam toy out. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.